Council. Today's date is May the 19th, 2020. The time is 6 p.m. Under this circumstance, we're under kind of a unique situation. I appreciate those who are here, and we have a limited seating, of course, and those who are joining us by Zoom. We appreciate your attendance. I will just remind those who are participating through Zoom that if you would like to make a comment, you either hit the raise your hand icon, or you can put in a chat, put your comments on chat, and they will be relayed to us. So the host will let me know if there are those members of the public that would like to make a comment. I'd also like to remind the council that since we are broadcasting, if you would please get us sort of lean towards your microphone as you speak, so it can be heard. We've had some comments that on Zoom that perhaps they couldn't hear us, so if you would please speak into your mic as much as possible. We'll begin our meeting tonight. The invocation will be presented by Councilmember Gerald. That will be followed by the pledge. If you're able, please rise.
Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity that we can come and represent the city, Lord. We ask you to be with us tonight, Lord. Anything we discuss, we ask you to help us in it. May we discuss it in a good manner, Lord. And we always remember there's two sides to all the issues, and Lord, we do the best. Father, we thank you this time that we're going through. We thank you for all the first responders, Lord, and all the responders. And we just ask you to be with all of them. Lord, we ask you to be with the businesses in the community. And Father, we're glad that we're finally getting back to work. We just ask you to be with them and help us through all these tough times. Now we ask you to be with the council tonight. Help us to make the right decisions in anything we discuss. For in Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please take attendance?
Mayor Walker.
Here.
Councilmember Happy.
Here.
Councilmember Clark. Here. Councilmember Gerald.
Here.
Councilmember Keith.
Here.
Attorney Camaro.
Here.
Administrator Mosqueda.
Here.
Police Chief Peterson.
Here.
Fire Chief Smith.
Here.
Public Works Director Allen.
Here.
Executive Assistant Robin Rock. Here. And Finance Director Reader. Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll ask first for the request for the addition, deferral, or withdrawal of items on today's agenda. I would ask that we withdraw item E under new business. That was an item that I asked to be put on the agenda. If some more information has become available, and we will hopefully we'll see that on a future agenda, but if not, we will withdraw it from today's agenda. Any other additions or referrals? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? Have a motion by Councilmember Gerald. We have a second. Second by Councilmember Clark and Keith. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Do we have any public comment cards, Madam Clerk? And I will remind the public, especially those who are on Zoom, if you want to comment on an item that is on the agenda, we will give you an opportunity when we get to that item. So we have no comment cards from public comment. Okay. We'll go then to proclamations. We'll try to stay 6 feet apart down there. Public Works Director Allen, if you're going, can you please? And apart here. Okay. Do like each other. Okay. Proclamation, Officer Mayor. Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the citizens of the city of Okeechobee. And whereas these infrastructure facilities and services cannot be provided without the dedicated efforts of public work professionals who are engineers, managers, employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of Okeechobee to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2020 marks the 60th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. And whereas this year's theme, the rhythm of public works, as we celebrate the hard work and dedication of the many public works professionals throughout the world. Now therefore, I, Dowling R. Rockford Jr., by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Okeechobee, Florida, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th through the 23rd, 2020 as National Public Works Week in the city of Okeechobee, and call upon all citizens to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contribution they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Congratulations. There you are. And you may address the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. I can't tell you how many tears of disappointment were in the guys for Public Works, so they couldn't come up here. All right, there were tears of disappointment. They're going like, we like this, but this is my time to, usually I just to brag on my people and introduce them to you or introduce them to you. But again, I'm proud of my guys that they're always willing to step up. You know, we have a pandemic. It's like, okay, we guys, we need to come in and clean picnic tables downtown. And you know, it's really satisfying when you drive by and see that people have gone to a local restaurant, got their meal, and were able to, you know, take it across the street. But no matter what we ask these guys to do, they'll do it. Whether it's some very, very unglamorous things of, you know, trash bags falling off a truck and on 440 when it's 70, and you guys go pick it up, and I can't tell you what there's guaranteed to be in those bags all the time. I mean, it was actually fun, you know, it was a challenge the first time we've ever put together a playground. It turned out pretty good, and we're looking forward to, you know, it's again, it's rewarding to go down and see kids doing that. So on behalf of my guys, we'd like to you know, thank the council and the mayor for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Okeechobee.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David.
I just want to know, who went down the slide first, Marvin or Wade? On the playground? Or you
I tried to get them to do some fun stuff there, but they, you know, Dave was there with the camera, and they wouldn't have any.
So fire chief was first?
I was told it was Mark.
No, I was way later.
All right. Thank you very much, David. Thank you guys for all the work that they do. We appreciate that. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Does anyone want anything pulled off the consent agenda for discussion? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion.
A motion by Councilmember Clark, a second by Councilmember Keith to approve the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes for the March 11th town hall meeting and the warrant register for April 2020. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. We'll go on to new business. The first is an update from Tiffany Collins with the Florida Department of Health for Okeechobee County regarding COVID-19. Tiffany, are you with us by Zoom?
No, sir.
She's not with us? Okay. Well, we won't have an update from Tiffany. I did notice that our cases were up substantially today. I don't know if there was, I think it was 8 additional cases today. I hope that was from one of the outbreaks. I hope it wasn't, but anyway, I did see that we have. But under that, the update or under the COVID-19, our local state of emergency, which we extended last meeting until this meeting. So that's up for discussion if we would like to extend the local state of emergency. I know the county has been extending theirs on basically a weekly basis. This resolution that we have prepared follows the governor's newest local state of emergency is in effect to July the 1st, unless, we the mayor terminates it earlier. So that is up for your discretion too, but we do need to determine if we want to extend the local state of emergency.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I may make a motion to extend the public health emergency due to the coronavirus 2019 COVID-19 through July 1st, 2020.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Keefe, seconded by Councilmember Clark to extend the local state of emergency. That's resolution number 2020-06. I will read that resolution into the record. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Okeechobee, Florida, extending the public health emergency due to the coronavirus 2019 through July 1st, 2020, providing for an effective date. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So we have extended the local state of emergency.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we're trying to get a hold of Tiffany right now. We did confirm with her last week. I'm just seeing if we can circle back.
Yeah, I was going to tell Robin if she does come on, if you'll let me know, we'll work that in
Yes, sir.
between items. Thank you. Okay, that's item A. Item B, under new business, appoint a new planning board of adjustments, design review board alternate member. That's exhibit 1 in your packet. We have, we actually have 2 applications. One was submitted, I think, some time ago, and it's been on file. The other was submitted and worked for this, yeah. And you can see it was advertised in February and March. We have, this is for an alternate member. We have the 2 applications from Michael G. O'Connor and Joseph Papasso. I think you all know both of those gentlemen if you want more information, and you do have their applications in your packet. So do we have, by the way, Mr. Les McCrary, who is resigning from the board, has served quite some time, and we will be presenting him with a certificate of appreciation under the circumstances. He would rather not attend a meeting, which is understandable. So we will get back to him for his many years of service on the planning board. So do we have a motion to appoint?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we appoint Joseph Papasso to the alternate member of the planning board for adjustment and appeals design review board.
We have a motion by Councilman Keefe. Who was the second, please? Councilmember Gerald is the second to appoint Joseph Papasso. Do we have any other discussion? And this is an alternate member, Madam Clerk, and we did move an alternate member to full member status
Correct.
some time back. Okay. All right. So any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is item C, discuss public works, asphalt, sidewalk, and striping work plans. It's exhibit 2 in your packet. I guess Public Works Director Allen, are you going to do the discussion on this or start?
I would be happy to start today.
And we will ask that you come to the microphone so whoever's speaking, so those who may be listening or watching can hear your comments. So you have okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just to start things off, to lead in, if I may, I feel I was
Councilmember Keefe, by the way.
Councilmember Keefe, just want to first off say, thank you to David and Public Works for putting this together. I harped on the city administrator a number of times last year due to constituents asking, when can they expect street paving, street striping, so on and so forth. And I feel it's very crucial to have a plan in place, for maintenance plans, just so one, informative, public can be aware of, but also for our budgeting purposes also. So we have something to go by, because you're always going to have issues that pop up and knee-jerk reactions, but if you don't have a plan in place that you're following and a goal set, you're always just reacting. So now we can be proactive and start budgeting and moving forward orderly. So thank you, David. And I wanted this discussion, I added this to the exhibit so that we all, if you had any questions, because I know I'd seen it, I didn't know if you all had seen it, but I wanted to public information as well in case the public had questions. So highlights, if you will, anything that sticks out.
I guess, we'll start with the pavement plan. My methodology with this, I mean, there's several different approaches you can do for something like this. As with anything, it all depends on how much money that you want to throw at it, how much you want to pay for a consultant, how much fancy equipment you want to spend money on. And we elected not to go down those roads. I've been in some council meetings and know that I probably didn't want to go down that consultant. I did personally drive all the streets in the city. I guess maybe I looked down a couple side streets. This analysis was then therefore pretty subjective, but it was based on actually getting out in the field and looking at the conditions. As the overview says, if we were to try to repave everything on a 50-year cycle, which is, if you get a road to last 50 years, it's lasts a long time. We're looking at about $140,000 a year in current costs. So that's definitely something we start looking at more when we start the budget for next year. I was feeling pretty confident we could start accelerating these things until the last few months, and we all know what's happened with the budget on that. We do have, I'm working right now with C.W. Roberts. We have a piggyback with the county's agreement. There's some quantities we're going back and forth on, but hopefully in the next very short period, we'll be doing the section on Southwest 21st Street. Again, that lovely section where they went and did the drainage program a few years ago, and so you have all those nice dips in the road. Southwest 9th Street and Northwest, 9th Avenue and Northwest 9th Street. Again, those are some areas where we had some serious problems with asphalt separating. There's a lot of work that needs to get out there, but I'm trying to identify the worst of that. With the sidewalks, again, I had my foreman go out and he's spent a lot of time out identifying priorities. But also with our sidewalk, we're trying to balance. We have right now a need for a lot of additional ADA ramps downtown to try to meet current code. So we're trying to balance that. Again, with some projects that we have coming online, some of the newer apartments that were the Southwest. Again, trying to get sidewalks to those, so those people, those apartments will have access walking to our downtown. So again, trying to balance those various needs. And finally, on the striping, we set an aggressive schedule. I have to admit that one, that's the one the most I don't like. Again, when we sit down and I sat in my office and divided things up and looked at it, and they're like, well, we could do north and south downtown every other year and the rest of it. I will admit that was probably pretty optimistic. Trying to keep the guys on it. Actually, we've been waiting for about 4 weeks for a new pump on our sprayer, even though it's a new piece of equipment. But we're definitely trying to pay attention, especially in the most used parts of town, to try to get new paint on. So it's an ongoing effort, and we continue to try to do that.
Any questions, David? I would like to echo Council Member Keefe's comment. It's very, I think, very detailed and a very good plan. I have one question on the. I don't know if you have your copy of what we have. I don't know if you have it, but on the South Park Street, the ADA ramp installation, West 500 block. Is there a page number? There's a page number here. Anyway, West 500 block. I don't know if you can find where I am or not.
Well, I printed this whole thing, but
On ours, by page 64 of 120. 64 of 120. But I see there's no, on the south side of Park Street, there's no ADA ramp in that block.
Okay, which block that was a
500, West 500 block. Are you, Marcos, have you got where?
Yes, it's the, like I say, it's Park 4, or Park 4 just, it's in front of OUA, Gladys's, That's what they said.
Yes. I'm just asking, I mean, I just noticed all the other parks, we have at least, I assume that little, red hashtag, or grid line, thank you, is the ramp, it's a handicap ramp, is that right? Am I?
Yes, yes.
So I'm just wondering if there's some reason we don't have one there, or do we need one? Maybe we don't need one.
I will verify on that. Like I said, I don't have my copy with me right now.
Okay,
I tried to not print 100 and whatever pages, so
yeah,
we will definitely have got enough to address that.
I don't know if we need one. I know we lose some space there because that driveway behind OUA.
That's what I was just thinking, Mr. Mayor, is maybe because of that, separation between those buildings, that's close to halfway point between the side streets, and there's ADA ramps at the beginning of each corner, and then I would imagine there as well.
Okay. Well, anyway, I just noticed that. Okay. Other question? Yes, Council Member Abney.
The markings that you have in the center of the park, like CR8 on the west 500 block, is that to be at a handicapped parking space?
The little ramp,
The ramp in the middle, not on the corner, but in the
Yes.
middle.
There will be an ADA parking space to go with the ramp.
There will be a space there.
Yes.
in the kind of the middle of the block.
Yeah, and that's one thing what David and I talked about, you're gonna lose 2 to 3 spaces and minimum for each block.
Right.
For that, because handicap's 12 foot plus 5, so 17 instead of 2 spaces. So we're already losing a couple spaces.
Have we determined how many park or ADA spaces we are needing per park?
We're basically adding one on each side, one at the middle of the park block of the north side, and one on the south side, correct?
We will be close to, and in most cases exceed the minimum requirement for ADA for the entire area. Because we do have ADA parking on the north-south streets, on the side streets that count towards it. So we would be, overall, we'll probably be right at or just above the true requirement for ADA.
So at the present time, we need to add those to meet the minimum. We're not there yet.
Correct.
We are also incorporating ADA ramps, and then again, some of our grant funded projects through FDOT. Tapping into that, I was surprised to find out that when you do a resurfacing, that's enough to trigger ADA construction, so we had to add grants to the projects that we already have in the book. Definitely.
And I've had comments from, and the business owners, they understand they're gonna lose some spots. But I have had comments that, some of their customers are, I happened to be at one of the businesses when one of the ladies was trying to get into her, off the curb and then into her car, and they want to be sure that I saw that they needed a ramp in front of their business, so timing couldn't have been better, but they understand that we need this. Councilmember Atkins.
Do you have a timeline on when all of this is, and what priority, I see a priority, but as far as when all this.
Oh, I mean, with the downtown, the approach I was going to take was start at one end and work to the other. Probably start at 441 and try to work our way. I mean, it doesn't make as much sense to me to try to hodgepodge and jump them in there. I think, remember right, for all the downtown ramps, it would probably take 3 to 4 years to do them all. So again, with the ADA requirements, there is not a requirement how quickly you have it done. ADA, they come in and look at it. Okay, if you have a program in place that's reasonable, then that safeguards the city from lawsuits on ADA. And so we're definitely trying to take that approach to, well, I mean, we want to do the ramps anyway, it's the right thing to do. But we are definitely looking at, there are groups out there that go around and make a living off of filing ADA lawsuits. So we're trying to, keep them out of business.
So,
Councilmember Dean.
Scrolling back up to the sidewalk projects, appreciate you adding in some secondary projects and potential future projects. I just wanted to notate the Southeast Sixth Avenue, 1,000 linear feet from the new Centennial Park. You said in here that it could possibly be completed this year. Is that
That one, and I know
is
we
that
worked with John, the problem with that one is, again, getting easements of right away. The Southeast Sixth Avenue is a very narrow street. Right. And so we are going to have to get additional easements from property owners to be able to complete that segment.
I just want to make a note, sorry,
Yeah,
when it comes to ADA.
Mr. Councilman, Mr. Administrator.
So I just wanted to make a comment because I went back through and checked something. We meet ADA currently now when it comes to the parks and overall parking. I want to just double check the number. We meet ADA with the north-south. The concern is, especially from the citizens, there's not some access to the park or in front of the businesses. So, and I know when we go back through and put them north-south, I want to just make sure they're correct. Then when we put them in, we're going to put them in just center of the ends. Because some areas do have handicap parking on the ends. There's always a discussion, well, I lost parking spot in front of my business, or I gained one, or, there may be a little of that discussion when we get there. Because I know, again, we give up 2 spaces for everyone. So I just wanted to clarify, county needs right now, we do need ADA, the 2 for 50 for each set, so we're okay with that. But on Park Street, yes, sir, on Park Street, because we count the north-south, you do a cumulative law.
Oh, okay. So for Park Street.
Park Street, yes, sir. It appears that we meet it, just can't do an overall count.
Councilmember Atkins.
So if we have enough parking spots for the park, why are we putting the parking spots center? Because the crossing is at the intersection. You're not crossing mid-span of the block, correct?
Correct. The idea was to add additional ADA access to the sidewalks, to have access at the center points of the park. And again, on the business side, was to give basically a shorter distance for each one of those businesses with ADA access.
So we're basically adding more for the park itself.
Yes, sir. Both sides.
To give access to the center of the park.
Correct. And we see that, we have concerns, because a lot of times we shut down these side streets where you close your north-south for an event. There is no ADA for the park because you close that north-south strip. This would incorporate those ADA spots for those events.
I didn't think about when we closed, that you lost your, yeah. Anything else? Okay.
I guess just one last thing, we did have some communications issue, but the bid for the sidewalks, we dotted the last I's and T's. I think there was one last form they wanted the attorney to cross-check one more time, but that bid should be out and on the street hopefully within the next week or so. And it will include ADA ramps, it will include some more concrete roadway in case of where you had stuff torn up by trucks, as well as new and replacement sidewalks. So hopefully we'll be able to do all the concrete we need to do with that one contract.
Great. Thank you, David. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is to amend the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget as presented in Exhibit 3. Do we have a motion to approve the amendments?
Mayor,
Yes.
we have Tiffany Collins has joined the meeting. I didn't know if you wanted to do her first.
Okay, all right. If it's okay, we will we'll take that in just a moment. We'll move back to item A, which will be an update from Tiffany Collins. Tiffany, are you with us now?
Okay.
We kind of hear you.
Okay. All right. So
We
just
hear
a
you. Yeah, go ahead, please.
okay, just a quick update. So the governor sent out his executive order 2123, which puts the whole state of Florida in what he's calling his full phase 1. So that opens up the state of Florida to opening up the restaurants and barbershops and salons and retail stores at 50% capacity. Still social distancing and following the guidance set forth in those executive orders, and those that are followed under DBPR to follow the guidance set forth in those guidelines as well. For our statistics, according to the DOH dashboard, Florida currently has 46,944 cases of COVID-19 in our state. We have 2,052 deaths in the state of Florida. That's a 4.4% death rate. Hospitalizations, those that have ever been hospitalized with a case of COVID-19, 8,494. In Okeechobee, currently on the dashboard, we have 45 COVID cases of residents in Okeechobee County. 1,169 have been tested. Those do not include the second round of the nursing home and those tested at Grand Oaks. I'm being told that our communicable disease dashboard, Merlin, will have a data dump today of the negatives that came out of those facility testings tonight. We have a 3.8% positivity rate in Okeechobee County, and that does not include those negatives, so that is likely to go down once those numbers come in with those negatives for Okeechobee County. So that's well under the 10% that the governor is looking for. I am being told the recovery data that I mentioned quite a while ago is still not being posted to the dashboard. My understanding is the CDC has looked to get a consistent agreement from all 50 states on what they would want the recovery information to mean. Still 14 days past the onset of symptoms minus death, just as a average. And so I believe all 50 states have agreed to that. So it's just getting those agreed in legislation by all 50 states. So I believe that's what the holdup is as far as that information getting put on the dashboard. So that information being posted is still forthcoming. Cases in the U.S. over 1.5 million, over 91,000 deaths. That's a 6% death rate. Globally, over 4.8 million cases, over 322,000 deaths. That's a little over 6.6% death rate. As far as testing, we're still looking to expand testing. CDC, of course, last time I reported, they've updated their symptom criteria. So in addition to the big three that we've been talking about, fever, cough, and shortness of breath, they've added chills, muscle pain, new loss of taste or smell, vomiting or diarrhea, sore throat. So if you feel that you've been exposed to COVID-19 or have any of these symptoms, please make sure that you either call your medical provider or call the health department. The health department, the Federally Qualified Health Center, FCHC. I'm also being told that urgent care is now testing for COVID-19, as well as you can make an appointment through Quest to get tested through a self-administered drive-through that Mayor Dowling Watford helped bring to Okeechobee County through the Walmart testing site, through the self-administered site. It's a private organization through Walmart that's doing that. So more expanded testing in Okeechobee County is what we all said we wanted, is more testing, and that's now available in our community, which is great for us. And that is being administered through the pharmacy in Walmart. We are continuing to try to prevent the spread in prevent the spread of COVID in our community through messaging of social distancing. So, continue to provide hand washing messaging, keeping your hands out of your eyes, nose, mouth. The CDC and NIH are still recommending the use of cloth masks for those that are well, or for the those that are recommended for the surgical mask, if that is what your doctor recommends for those that are sick, or saving the N95s for those that are in the healthcare community, and protecting the elder and the vulnerable population. That is all the updates that I have for today. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tiffany. We appreciate the update, and again, we appreciate all your work, and saw your post. I think it was on Facebook or something, a good post about us keeping vigilant with our social distancing and masks and so forth. I have one question for you, Tiffany. I think you had 8 cases from yesterday. Is that, do you know if there's any particular reason? Is it for one of the facilities or anything, or just reporting?
So the 8 cases from yesterday may have included some from our particular outbreak that we're having with our DJJ facility, but it's also just individuals in our community that are coming down with the COVID. positive cases, not necessarily all 8 from the DJJ facility. Just continue to, be vigilant with our social distancing and the prevention measures that are being set forth by the CDC and the recommendations that we're providing from DOH. Keeping the 6 feet apart. Hand washing is about the best prevention measure that I can recommend to you, is just wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If that's not available, use the hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol. Disinfect where you can, frequently touched areas. If you're of the vulnerable population, the recommendation, the health advisory from the Surgeon General still stands. If you're immune compromised, stay home when you can, and avoid, large crowds and congregate settings of less than 10 people where you can.
Other questions from the council? Any other questions from Tiffany? Okay, Tiffany, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your update and appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go back to item D, which was to amend the 2019-2020 fiscal. I believe Councilman Gerald made a motion to approve the amendment. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Abney. Madam Finance Director, I assume you're going to address us on this, please. And I think we are on, that's Exhibit 3 in your package.
Yes, I believe it is. Mayor, City Council, I appreciate the opportunity to be before you today. Not exactly the best news here that I'm going to be presenting as far as the main budget. I am asking to increase it. But first of all, I wanted to mention, thank Chief Smith and the firefighters for making sure the coding was paid for all of us. And I did test him like 97.6 or something per finger, so that's a good thing. What you have before you, and I tried to make it very concise on the first page after the very brief memo listing what the current budget was on specific line items, what the change amount is, whether it'll be a addition or a subtraction in that line item with the proposed budget on the end. So we can go by page, or I can just kind of refer to this one pager. In addition to this page, the only other item that I was suggesting that we amend is the $300,000 grant that you approved during this past fiscal year that we've added back in. We did not have those numbers, didn't have that approval during the budget time, so we removed that.
If it's okay with the council, could we just go over that? That's what, page 72 of 120. That's the changes.
Yes, sir.
Could you please just review those for us, please?
Yes, sir.
Unless there's objection from the council. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the first item, I think it was just this past meeting, the council approved the charter review, and we did budget $40,000 for that. So the suggested maximum was at $45,000. So I'm asking to increase that budget by $5,000 for a total of $45,000. Stop me if you need to, or we can do questions at the end, whatever is easier for council. Under the executive budget, we did have, again, I wanted to also preface it, a lot of these items that were not already pre-approved by the council are the budget adjustments are based on COVID. We'll be requesting those items through FEMA for reimbursement. These items were not budgeted. We do have funds in the budget at this time, but this is mid-year, not end of year. So that's why we're asking to amend the budget, and then of course to show FEMA that these were not budgeted items that we're having to expense out. So with that being said, we did change out monitors so we could have webcams and things for our Zoom meetings. So that is the increase of $550. Under the legal department, again, council approved changing the professional services. We budgeted $80,000 for the contractual services for legal services. And so we're asking to increase that. Within the legal service budget, we had budgeted the full year for health insurance. And of course, with our prior attorney leaving in December, we did not include the health insurance in the current legal services contract, so we have a negative there. So that washes in The next is finance department, again, contractual services for the data incident. I'm sure you're well aware of. We have $2,400 that we did not have it budgeted. And then, of course, COVID for public relations and media services and getting our website up and running again for our target audience for COVID, helping us out with Zoom and educating the public. General services, we are seeing a dramatic increase again on animal control, so we are asking for an increase in that budget as well of $14,000, bringing that total. That is not all animal control services, there are other services in that one line item. Again, COVID-related expenses, and then we have significant lift repairs. Again, we normally budget for maintenance of the lift, but not to this extent, so we're asking that for that increase as well. Under fire department, you'll see every time increase, as well as FICA, which is due income taxes. We do have a significant amount of increase in overtime, as you know, and are aware. We've had several firefighters leave us, and so we've had to hire, for the lack of a good word, newbies, but individuals that may not have the most experience, and so therefore we have to have the department has to double up in training and, of course, still cover the shift. So their overtime budget has been hit pretty hard. They're also tonight working on COVID things as well, so those are documented. Again, everything that we're doing in addition to our normal day-to-day activities, we're documenting, hopefully we can get results back on the federal government. Education, again, the council approved it's up to $60,000 for tuition for our firefighters. That $60,000 was an estimated $6,000 per firefighter at 10 firefighters. We presently only have 6 firefighters that are attending the paramedic school, so we don't feel that we're going to use every dollar of those monies, but that was the dollar amount the council set aside, so that's why we're asking for that increase. Under the police department, the dispatchers repair and maintenance is what you're seeing is a $6,400 increase. As you know, our dispatchers are housed at the EOC Center, and they've had some extensive repairs made at the dispatcher stations. Since we have a dispatcher station and a backup, we had to share in those costs. So again, that was an unexpected budget item that we were not aware of at the time of our budget. Under the regular operational budget for Public Works, there's no changes. I will state that Public Works does have an overtime budget that's not over budget this time. We're closely monitoring that because we are having, of course, our maintenance workers come in on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays to wipe down the table. So we are closely monitoring that. We may have to amend that at the end of the year, but right now we feel we're good to go with that. The clerk, again, COVID-related charges as well. Questions on the general fund? Public facilities, we currently have a SCOT grant, and we were doing our quotations. Our amount that we budgeted was less than what we believe is going to be our estimate when we go out for bid. This is actually including some ADA compliance. This is apropos that Mr. Allen was, speaking regarding ADA compliance. That's exactly what that $22,000 is. It's more in-cuts in that project. When it comes up for bid, I'm hoping it's not going to be more than that, but that is, we know that that's probably going to be at least that additional money. Capital fund, again, laptop software, additional security for the laptops that I purchased for council and staff. City Hall door security. At the beginning of the year, we had additional costs for the door security blocks. And we went ahead and purchased a laptop for general services as well that was not budgeted, thinking that we may have to work from home. I want to make sure that she was able to be up and running for the building department. And that's being put to use tonight, I believe, zooming in. Police department, as you know, you approved the decrease in vehicles and then changing from Chargers to Durangos, so that had a significant decrease in cost. And then the Centennial Pavilion and restrooms, that dollar figure budget-wise was significantly more than budgeted so we're asking it to be budgeted at $140,000, and that is including the cost savings that was presented to council this past meeting. And then there is fencing and solar lights, again, at the Centennial Park with a little over budget, so we went ahead and include those. Even though that line item has enough in there, I did want to make sure that everyone was aware of those dollar amounts. And then, since we're not selling as many Chargers, there is a significant decrease in our revenue source for selling vehicles. And then, as I mentioned, on page, the grant of $300,000, we don't anticipate spending out that entire $300,000, of course, but we will, I know, have amounts. I'm trying to get to that page 25 and 27 of the budget. We will have administrative costs and the CAS who actually does the administration of that budget. So I wanted to make sure we include that because we didn't have any dollars in this fund.
That's page 97 of 120.
I'm sorry, yes, I was looking at my
Yep,
page number.
right, that's right.
Thank you, sir. And that's really the only, those are the budget changes that we're suggesting. Again, I'm not one to bring to you asking for additional monies to be spent, but these are extraordinary circumstances.
Questions of India, Finance Director?
I just want to add one item, when you talk about Centennial.
Administrator.
Sorry, Mayor. Just want to bring up one Centennial Pavilions and restrooms. We did not spend those dollars last year in the pavilions, if the council remembers. It's just one item I want to make sure, so we carry those dollars forward. The assumption was when this bid went out, it would also incorporate that. So it looks like a very large number over. However, we didn't do that project last year until we changed the pavilions. Right. That's it. All right.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that reminder. I was going to thank you, Mr. Administrator.
Any other questions? Thank you, Madam Finance Director.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that. We have a motion to approve the amendments. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Item E was withdrawn, so we will go to item F, which is discuss the fire service interlocal provided by Okeechobee County. It's Exhibit 5 in your packet. I know we have quite a few people in the audience and perhaps on Zoom that would like to maybe make comments. And I've thought about this quite a bit, and I discussed it with the administrator about maybe this is, of course, a important decision, and it's somewhat, I guess, controversial decision. I thought perhaps the best thing to do the best way to handle this is we will let the administrator, he sent us a memo, and you all have that, I think, in your packet with his, we have the interlocal from the county. We have the administrator's memo, kind of just, discussing some of that. I thought maybe we would have him, go over his memo, discuss that with us. Then we would let each council member, of course, if they have questions, the administrator will answer them then, but then let each council member maybe give their thoughts, and then open it up for a public comment, if that sounds agreeable. That way the public can hear our discussion, and it may answer some of the questions that some of them may have, or it may give them other questions they would like to ask. And so I thought we would use that procedure so we could get through this. I'd also like to remind you, you have an email. We received an email from the Economic Council of Okeechobee. You were provided that email, and I think you have a copy. I think the clerk provided you a hard copy of that at your place tonight. We also you were provided some public comments that were given to the clerk, and we will read those into the record when we go to the public comment section. So If that's kind of agreeable with the council, we'll do it that way. But before we begin any discussion, I just want to be sure we have a consensus of the council to continue discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We have, okay, because if we weren't gonna do this, there's no sense having a long discussion, but we have a consensus of the council to continue. So, Mr. Administrator, I will ask you to, can you speak loud enough for everybody to hear? We think so. Okay, so Mr. Administrator, if you will, begin your discussion with the memo that you provide the council, please.
Just in summary, I wanted to say the memo, and I had some discussion with staff, and I mean by staff, be it from finance to HR to legal or whatnot, what we're trying to do with the memo. And that's why some of this is more spurred to have more decisions by the council, again, later discussion. What I had tried to address and with staff discussion was to get back through the management operation of what this would be. So we can go item by item from the standpoint of how we would pay it, recommendations on how we would base it time-wise, et cetera. It was more of a managerial review. When it came from a policy standpoint, that's where I had a discussion with Romero before, is I want the policy discussions where I kind of left it open. I need that discretion from council to give the policy decisions for you guys, for us to incorporate and go back. A lot of the items, and I can go item by item, it's council's pleasure on how you want to go through it. I mean, that's up to you guys. Because again, mine was just operationally. So if you want to start from the first or last, that's up to council.
I think I would like for you to give us don't have to give us the long version, but could we have
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'll touch on the highlights, and you guys can read each one of my comments, and I know it's out there on the web. I just wanted to add a whereas. There was a high-level fire service. Nowhere in the document did we define high-level fire service, and I'll discuss that later. In page 2, just to go through a couple of items I had concerns with were inspections. The city, from BTR or plan review, we now had kind of an open end on dates and times. So I think those reviews and those BTR inspections as well as plan reviews need to be timely. So again, it's up for discussion, but I know that we turn out building permits and BTR inspections very quickly. And I want whoever service was would still match that, or up to council to make sure we keep that high level of service. Further along in that section as well, there were references with us and OUA and testing and hydrants. If we're not going to be in the fire service when it came to that, we're not going to be in the hydrant testing service either. So that was, again, from a standpoint, we won't have staff to do it. That needs to be borne by the county. I did request that they have their fee schedule for us to adopt that or review that, because this would be the fee schedule that our citizens and our businesses would have to pay. Also, of which, if they were collecting fees and were paying for the inspector, those fees should be remitted back totally to the city if we're paying for the inspector. I'll go page, or my second page of the memo. The timeline. The only reason I put April 1st into the memo, I know there was some discussion with COVID and whatnot on when the paramedics would finish their class. I hear from November to December of when they would finish their class, but then take the state testing. I don't know when that would come back. This, I would say, at minimum, if it's February, would give them a month and a half to apply whatnot with the county, as well as April 1. I know India likely that's a quarter. So that way we would end that quarter, it'd be the first quarter closest to the beginning of the year. I did change the, from an advisory comment, I get ahead of myself. I refer back to the base payments, and then the remaining items, especially 4 through 7 and 9, refer to the county's base payment sheet. And again, I'm just looking at it nuts and bolts, because they really, in the contract, and I think you guys watched the commission meeting as well, that kind of threw it out to us. They double count and tell us how each additional increase is going to be added with no decrease or renegotiation, it's just added. So it seems like there's either a double counting of items added or double counting of what fees we're gonna get hit with above and beyond the base payment sheet that seemed to already be included in the base payment sheet. So that's why that was kind of a broad comment. The payments for us, I'll go back to the payments for us, rather than one lump sum at the beginning of the year, you know, we have, our ad valorem dump is usually January, February. If it means that one of our largest revenues, I'd rather be quarterly. And that way, from an operational standpoint, it's typical, you know, what we do with code or what we do with animal control and other contractual services to follow along with quarterly payments. Again, there was only avenues for increases. There were no cost savings or no decrease negotiations in any of the contract proposed. So if there was a decrease in what they proposed, they should at least give us an option for that decreased cost as well. And that's, again, that's for those payments. One of the items I thought, and this is just, again, it's a negotiated item, but again, for staff recommendation, they propose any CBA increases to be increased and just get a sum of divided by 7, or taking the overall increase from the county divided by 7. That would also include higher end, you know, their higher end support staff or their supervisory staff. I would say we would just pay our 7. Again, that it would be up to council. Just one of the items I thought to bring to the table. Page 4 in my memo, which would be page 2, which references page 4, section 5, personnel. I know it's been one of the items that the council has directed us anyway to report back to the county. I think it's important to provide a preference for hiring city employees, regardless of place of residence, because I know some guys we have work for us do not live maybe in Pachugi, but do work for us, as well as them not losing their years of service, et cetera, ranking years of service. Section 6, I would really like to have more discussion with council and council's input, lease or giveaway. I don't have, that's a council decision on the equipment. The only thing I didn't remove was any of the, say, the truck, other than the small trucks, the large ladders and large equipment. That would be up for discussion, since I know Public Works is on a plan to replace trucks every year. That'd be a hard cost. We would keep those costs that way, at least for me, operationally, I could cut truck costs for the next couple years for us, rather than just give that pickup truck away. I don't see them driving the fire truck around, but just those pickup trucks. The remaining would be up to the county or up to the council on what they would want when it came to lease, repair, maintenance, et cetera. The way it was said was a lease, and we basically pay every end. I've leased a vehicle before, never had to pay everything, but again, that would be a council's discretion on what policy they would want. If we were to give the equipment, which I know that was a discussion, to give the equipment to them, we could do that, but it seems in their contract at the end of this three years that we would have to pay for new equipment. Well, and that's why I put the $1.5 million or $500,000 for the truck. Doesn't seem to be a lot of savings if we're buying the new equipment. So again, I just want to bring that up from staff, present to council. Then we get the section 9, city payments toward a building. They did incorporate that in their base pay sheet. However, from a staff recommendation, I could not say, let's sign on to a proposed building when we don't know the true cost. And their contract's just a base percentage. It seems like they're either double counting it or at least give us a cost for a building, et cetera, before we could go in there. Section 16, this one was more me. I did ask our department, because we do reference a high level of service. I don't really think we tell the fire department how we rate them. We don't rate them on if the fire went out in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. We don't rate them on was the person walking when they left. It's literally response time. And I know the police department the same way. I asked for a 3-year average. It's like 4.1 minutes for fire calls, so that's why I said 4.2. It's just basically a base defining what high level service is. With that, again, I need more direction from council. I know we've got a lot of input on this. It's just, again, my cursory review on what items are in the contract that we need to at least address and send back to them, because I don't think anyone is agreeable to the contract as proposed. So With that, I know I went real fast, but I wanted to just make sure.
Thank you. I just want to be sure that the public, since they haven't had the opportunity to see your memo, perhaps, I say saw in our agenda packet. Thank you, Mr. Administrator. We'll bring it up here for council discussion. If you have any questions of the administrator, or if you have particular comments on particular items that you would like to address, or as I did mention, we did have a correspondent from the Economic Council of Okeechobee, their recommendation and a revised contract that they submitted. So we'll start with, it's okay, we'll start with comments up here. Councilmember Abney, would you care to make comments before we continue on?
I'd like to, if we could start off by maybe start with page 1 and go section by section. I don't know, me reading down my whole list and next to next, I don't know how productive that's going to be.
All right. Does the council rather do that? Just go page by page and we'll make comments as we go, or any, okay, we'll start on page 1 of the interlocal. You'll notice that the administrator made a comment to add another whereas. I don't know if that's.
I'm fine with that. Anyone else have this problem with that?
Everybody okay with adding that whereas?
I wanted to comment on regarding that.
Okay.
To the administrator, this Councilmember Keith. The administrator's memorandum, I had made little sticky notes on my page here. You had mentioned same level of fire protection. And we haven't defined that high level of professional fire services to the city. And when I first read it, I'm not saying this is how it was intended or not. To me, it sounded like we're insinuating that the OCFR might not perform their jobs as good within the city limits as in the county, but that in some way OCFR is not as good as OCF, which I don't want that to be portrayed like that. So, I would like to think that the county fire rescue do a bang-up job of high professional fire services, nonetheless. And then the services shall be interpreted to be maintaining same level of fire, ISO rating, area of and type of coverages and response times. So ISO rating, I wanted to touch on that because is it not tied to automatic aid agreement? Do we get points for the automatic aid? And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going from memory here from a previous conversation months ago, but having a secondary unit or department or whatever assisting, does that affect our ISO rating? And if it does, then you cannot expect them to maintain an ISO rating that is at a certain level that it is affected by something that's going to immediately go away.
Well, I think that's one item, and I'm looking at the fire chief. I saw him shaking his head. That it's one item that is considered under the ISO rating. It's one of many factors that they consider. I think we were told, I think the county, if I remember all the discussions that happened at the county commission meeting, I think one of those discussions was that the ISO rating, if this were to go through, would not change. Yeah. Does anybody else recall that? And I'm going to look at the fire chief again.
Yes, what they indicated, but I don't see how you can predict something like that. But there's unknowns and it's not very tangible.
Yeah. We were told that it would continue to be a 3 and it could go lower, but it wouldn't affect the homeowner's insurance very little.
So it's that, to answer your question, is one of the factors, it's not the only factor.
Understood.
And it may or may not, as the chief said, depending on how many points that counts into the whole total score or something.
There's something that crossed my mind, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that it's an element of ISO rating. If it is, then obviously if it impacts it, it's going to impact it. If that automatic aid goes away because
We don't exist.
right. So I just wanted to bring that up. I mean, how can we expect them to maintain something that we're causing to change? That was my only point to that.
We're not giving what the citizens already have.
That's my only comment there.
So I guess we have a consensus that whereas is okay. Brad, I think that, okay. Any other questions on page 1? Page 2, do we want to put a time? It's okay, I'll just compare it to what the administrator, do we agree with the time, 7 calendar days for the inspection? Does everybody agree with that?
I was just gonna say, Mr. Mayor, for me, 7 days would be what we would consider like a BPR review or building plan review. And currently, we have that close to that number now, a little bit quicker.
My question is, what is does the city have a minimum now?
That's my question as well. Do we have a documented in writing, black and white list of inspection services and timelines for those inspections?
Currently, it's the same, and I'll say this from an operational standpoint, it's not that we have a minimum, but I can assure you, they know the 30 days is unacceptable. And typically they have a week. That's why I just want to keep that same level because we usually week and a half getting those inspections out. I don't want it to be delayed. That's why I just don't want to set it. I mean, it's arbitrary. I don't want it to be month and a half and they do theirs first and for secondary.
I agree, there should be an expectation of an appropriate amount of time. I just don't want to insist on something that we're not already following a guideline that we already have established for ourselves.
Correct.
So,
14 days for, is that more?
We target 7 to 10 days on it.
I don't think the county provides that in 7 days.
No, I don't think so. And I think if we go 7 to 10, is 14 acceptable? I assume we would all agree that the county should coordinate with OUA. They're doing the fire service.
Yep.
I don't see any reason 30 days for the cost for us to review those costs. The effective date, let's kind of skip that right now because that one will depend on where we go from now. I think that's something that could be adjusted as we go. It may take us that long to negotiate back and forth if that's what we're going to do. Okay, page 3, we get into the stop me if I'm going too fast. One other question I'd like to ask here: do we, the Economic Council suggested we do a 5-year contract? Is there a consensus of the council we'd rather do 5 or 3?
I agree with that. I think 5 years is a little bit more appropriate and just shows interest in, a more proper term for a contractor. I mean, I think the majority of the commissioners at their meeting expressed concern or just a comment regarding the 3 years. It was just that's easy out, that's quick. Just would like to show more commitment.
Their attorney said that 3 years is a short term, 5 years is a normal. But that's something they pre-decided, whatever we decide.
Okay. So we're leaning more toward 5 years. Okay. All right. And I guess here is an appropriate time to discuss. Do you want to? Yeah.
Discuss the base pay?
Yeah. Or if you want to, yeah, we had you all have what we have for the recommendation.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, let's discuss that over here.
You know,
Councilmember Adams?
I remember throughout this whole process, several times that they were having presentations, we had gotten spreadsheets showing the 1, 2, and 3 year spreadsheet. I know that the county has a fee schedule that they go off of, or a assessment that they use, and it seems to work for them. I don't understand why that calculator couldn't be used for the city. Whatever that not use it as an assessment, but whatever that calculation is in the city, that would be the base fee. And then go that route versus, you know, what their spreadsheet that they come up with. That's my thought.
So your recommendation then would be, the amount that the fire tax would generate in a year from the city would be the base fee. Is that?
That and that would be what that fee would be.
That fee, okay. So it would be, instead of doing all this calculation on how much everything costs and salaries and so forth, it's just that base fee.
That's it. Okay. And that would be it. There wouldn't be any extras.
So there wouldn't be any adjustments or paying for maintenance or paying for 10% of a building. Correct. So you're basically suggesting the contract that the Economic Council provided.
Along those lines, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Basically. Okay. Let's just get a consensus on that. Councilmember Gerald, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, I think that would be much fairer to do that, and I mean, I can go through the items here, and I don't think we should lease this equipment. I think it should be a responsibility. I don't want to cover maintenance or insurance or replacement. I don't want to pay for a building. City residents pay county taxes also, so we're going to pay for the building, and we just need to go with the fee.
Okay. Councilmember Keith? Agreed. Agreed. Councilmember Clark?
I agree.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So we're agreeing then that we want to, that kind of takes care of replacement of vehicles, city payments for the building, insurance on vehicles,
But we do need to discuss about the vehicles themselves. Do we sell at the dollar? How do we expose of the vehicle? We need to discuss that at some point, maybe not right second, but at some point.
okay, you know, in the interlocal, we were leasing the vehicles to the county for $1 a year. I think at a previous meeting, and Mr. Administrator, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think we kind of did a consensus that was what we wanted, what the council wanted to do was lease the vehicles for basically lease the vehicles for $1 a year. We didn't want to sell the vehicles. We gave the county that direction, if I remember correctly.
I think also council's direction, yes.
Yeah, we did a consensus that we wanted to.
I don't remember that.
Well,
Okay, I'm standing corrected. Okay, well, let's discuss what we want to do with the vehicle.
I may be wrong.
Okay, let's let Councilmember Abney, since he has the floor, let's let him comment on give his thoughts on.
I apologize, but I don't recall council consensus on leasing equipment. I may be wrong.
But okay, you have a suggestion then, or you have what's your thoughts?
I'd say we sell the equipment
At
a fair price, dollar, if that's whatever is the legal way of doing that. I don't know what that is.
at some kind of appraised value or some value, not $1 or not.
That I don't know yet.
Okay. Councilmember Carroll, you have?
Yeah, I'm more in favor of giving the equipment to the county. The city taxpayers have already paid for it, and I don't know why they should have to pay for it twice. We're city residents and we're county residents also, so I don't want to see the city people have to pay for anything twice.
Okay, so basically just give the equipment to go, kind of basically what it is now, except we're not doing any maintenance. Okay, Councilmember Heath, you have a thought?
Most usually, Mr. Mayor.
Always, yes, sir.
I'll share this.
I was disappointed with that agree. That's the shortest answer you've ever given.
I'm gonna give you a heads up on council member comments.
Okay.
I do not have any this evening.
Oh, no.
Just- yeah, I want to.
Okay.
I agree with Councilmember Gerald, and I like Councilmember Abney. My memory is horrible, but regardless, if we did have consensus, it was certainly before this came and we were paying for nuts and bolts and anything, so I certainly am for this purchase amount being $1 and hand over everything and be done with any kind of responsibility of those.
Okay. Councilmember Park.
I just want to clarify that we're talking about the ladder truck and
Upper.
the one fire engine, right?
Okay.
That's
And they
all.
also requested a vehicle, a pickup or
Right,
some
we're
vehicle
talking
for
about,
inspector.
your recommendation is the vehicles that we're getting, right?
Yes, yes, ma'am. What I was thinking is that I know next year and the year after, Public Works does a basically replace one old truck. Since we have two, we could defer those costs for us. So it's merely, for this standpoint, it would be the ladder truck, the engine, any bunker gear, and radios, and air packs. Yes.
Okay, so I agree that if we're gonna do this contract, that the equipment goes with the contract.
And do we all agree, do we, Mr. Administrator, you'll have to clarify that for me. You're recommending that we do not give them a vehicle for the inspector.
Correct.
So we're talking about, as Councilmember Park said, ladder truck, the new bumper truck, and bunker gear, air packs, and radios.
Correct. We could give them one of the Public Works trucks, but again, I'm trying to, if it's a city cost, because I know, I'm thinking down the road, the next couple of years, it may be difficult, especially this upcoming year, to have one of the trucks, it's 20-some thousand savings, so.
Okay. All right. So is everybody in agreement with that? Yes. Okay. Other comments? We kind of took a lot of this out of that first recommendation.
Can I go back to
Yes,
comments
please.
about, the money that
Yes.
you were referring to about what the county would charge the city, if it was the same as what they would collect at their rate? I would like to see it that it's not to exceed that. We're only talking less than 300 fire calls that they're gonna be covering. And I guess the figures are around $700,000 they would collect. That seems like a lot of money to cover 300 fire calls. We're already paying the EMS fees. And so ambulance is already covered under the contract, us paying the EMS fees. So all that would be left are the 300 fire calls. And I think $700,000 to cover 300 fire calls is pretty expensive. So I think if you're spreading that over the whole county, the cost should be coming down. So I think that should be the ceiling, would be
The maximum.
the maximum.
Yeah, and I think that's understood. Yes, thank you.
Okay,
I think that's what we're talking about.
I agree. Okay, we can keep going.
Okay.
Okay.
I would just like to make a comment. I think everybody probably knows my feelings, so I don't need to go over my, I have said since from day one that if we were going to do this, it should be done using the fire tax rather than us doing a contract with the county. Rather than city taxpayers are using ad valorem tax money to pay for a contract for fire service, it should be, we tell the county, okay, we're getting out of the fire business effective this date. It's up to you, and let them do the fire tax to the city residents just like they do county residents. And then, to me, that saves us that entire fire budget, basically. So if we were going to do it, that was the way I suggested. Now, since we've discussed this, it's been suggested to me that if we do it this way, and if they accept that, which is, the other question, that at some point you could convert then to do that. And I agree with you 100%, Councilmember Clark. Let the record show that we agree on something, that if that were done, that should lower the fire tax for everybody, the entire county. It should.
That's correct.
It should. Now, whether it would or not, that's up to the county. But technically or theoretically it should. So anyway, that's the only comment I'll make on that. So, okay, other discussion, yes.
Can I respond to your comment?
Councilmember Clark.
And I agree. And I think people need to understand the reason that we can't do the fire assessment in the county is because we asked to go to referendum so the voters could vote on whether we do this contract. And the county said, legally, am I correct, that the response was the county is not interested in going to referendum, and it has to be a decision by both the county and the city to go to referendum and vote to merge the two fire departments and use the fire assessment fee. Is that correct?
That's what we were told. Now, since then, I have been told, and I've been told sometimes gets you in trouble. Gets you in a lot of trouble. I have been told that there's another way to do it. That I believe it was Zephyr Hills, I believe, just did this, a similar thing, and they disbanded their fire department effective, let's say January 1, and then the county was then liable, since they had no longer had a fire department, they are then liable for fire protection, and so it did not take a referendum. Now, that's what I've been told.
That's correct.
I don't know if that is
I think that's correct.
the attorney would have, or we'd have to get legal advice on that. But, I understand that's the way that could work. Personally, I like the referendum because then people vote on it. But that's another ball of wax for another discussion. We're talking about the interlocal right now. So, okay, Councilmember Keith.
Thank you. I just have one other question regarding the base payments and the fire assessment and whatnot. A couple months ago, it's been a while, this COVID, seems like it's been years since we've been locked down stuff, but did we pay for the addition of the city area to be included in the county fire assessment study? At some point, the administrator had commented or offered, or did we do that? Were they going to go through with?
Council's direction was not to move forward. Because I was going to get a quote, and the direct consensus was not to get the quote and move forward.
Thanks.
Other discussion from the council?
Yes.
Yeah, Councilmember Gerald.
No, if this proposal went through, they don't have to do a fire assessment next year, correct? No.
I think they have a fire assessment study in the works, or soon to be. I'm not sure if it's currently being, or if it's.
I guess I'm going to ask.
Or an update to their fire assessment.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and I think
they have to do an update every so many years.
It might have been one of those, I've been told things
Yeah.
too, but I know they were doing an assessment right now just for the county, and it was not inclusive of the city. They offered us to, again, go into and do that assessment, and again, we did not. It was one of those items not to put the dollars to, so, my understanding, I know he's over here turning and burning, trying to get the answer back, but I don't think we can do an assessment next year. It would still come out of that more, or the year after.
Yeah, we were just,
We'll verify.
Okay, yes, Councilmember Clark, yes.
Can I ask a question regarding that? Could that be a part of this contract that at the end of a certain time frame that they go to, what's that, we can't direct that to the county or suggest that to the county or make a recommendation to the county. If we go through this process, can we say at the end of 3 years it needs to go to fire assessment?
Yeah,
How would that work?
the attorney's going to respond to that question.
So you could create a process to make a cooperative process with the county to come to a decision. Otherwise, it gets into this age-old issue about a particular county commission binding a future elected county commission, which they cannot. So, but I have seen scenarios, not having to do with fire service, but another scenario where they agree on a process to get to a referendum, where you can, they can't say, we will do a referendum 5 years. That's going to be up to the elected officials in office at that time.
Okay, so if we are still subcontracting to the county for fire services, can we then go to a referendum to assess our citizens for
Yes,
fire?
I think we could, yes.
There's nothing here that ties our hands in that regard.
Can you do a fire assessment if you don't have an active fire department? I guess that's what I'm asking.
You're paying for a service.
I can give you a firm, I don't know.
At least it's an honest answer, I reckon. That's something else we can look into.
And I think the reason, again, the reason I'm asking these questions is people keep saying, we want to vote on it, we want to go to referendum, and we asked that of the county, and the county said no.
No, they want to do a contract.
They
The
do not
county
want
was
to go to
pretty adamant that they want a contract, not a
Sorry, it's an election year.
referendum and fire tax. And we said we want a contract too by consensus, if I remember correctly, and I'm not going to say I remember correctly, but I think we said that by consensus. Okay, other questions from the council before we open it up for public comment? I hope the public has had an opportunity to hear our discussion and kind of see the direction we're headed. Mr. Administrator, oh, I thought we kind of did away with all the contracts. Okay, all right, what else do we want to discuss? That's what I was asking, does anybody have anything else? Because we took out, we're taking out the 10% of the building, we're taking out we already decided probably what we want to do with the vehicles.
One of the items I know was employees.
Okay, employees.
Also, the retirement plan liability, I'm assuming that liability relies back on the city still. Section 10, if you pay 6 of 10. Just want some clarification on that, who pays for that? Is that something that the city would pay for regardless?
They're on a different retirement plan, so whenever, invested individuals, if they chose to keep it with our retirement plan, if I understand correctly, we'd be liable for any payments continuing until.
Okay, section 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 would be kind of, my question is, who pays for those costs? That's on the city would keep and retain? Or would that go?
I'll let the administrator respond to that. I think we're obligated to our employees for their retirement. Those employees that are currently employed with the city, we're liable for their retirement under the city plan.
And just, Mr. Mayor, right now, we have asked the fire pension, and they're doing the study right now to give us what that liability is. However, for cursory review and discussion, letting council know that it is over 100% funded. So that liability currently, as it's projected, the earned benefit they have when they would leave, they would still have. Now, it wouldn't bill, but they would have. With the only additional cost later would be administration of that, which would be nominal and still go back to the city to do that. So the majority is covered. When it comes to reports and general liability, et cetera, workers' comp, and records retention, indemnification, I'll throw it to the attorney because that's typical boilerplate, but those items we would do back and forth. We're still going to have public records requests. We're still going to have indemnification. We're still going to have records retention. We're still going to be responsible for our workers' compensation while they were here. Anything new obviously would be with them. So those items I didn't really touch on, but that to me is standard language.
Contracting is not very clear. Any of those liabilities or responsibilities would remain with the city.
Okay. And then the last thing that I'd like to talk about is personnel. Section 5, page 4 of 10, 5 personnel here. County is saying that they're wanting, that they would be hiring six firefighters, paramedics, and one fire inspector. There is no guarantee that they would take any of our city firefighters. I know we sent five. How many have we only sent paramedic school? Six. I'd like to somehow address that and to where they will, give us some guarantee that they would take our firefighters at some sort of, at their level of experience.
Okay, and I think, and we'll let maybe the attorney can, of course, what their reasoning is that it goes because of their collective bargaining agreement with their fire union, that they can't provide that wording or that guarantee. Now, I certainly don't know have no idea what their collective bargaining agreement says or whatever, but apparently that's what, as you know, their attorney drew this up, so I'm assuming he must have felt that was what it says. So, but I'll ask the attorney if he has any response to that or any thoughts.
I have not reviewed Okeechobee County's collective bargaining agreement. It does appear to infer that that's a limitation.
Okay.
You know, I would, if I may.
Yes, yeah, go ahead, Mr.
You
Attorney.
can give us direction on what's important, what your priorities are, and if there's an obstacle, we'll bring it back to you. But right now, I just assume there isn't. Just let us know what is important, and we'll move forward.
So, Councilmember Abbey, you're suggesting that one of the items in the interlocal agreement should be that they agree to give our firefighters preferential hiring and at basically their current level.
Or somewhere close to it, but definitely preference.
Okay, all right, we have a consensus on that from the council. Councilmember Gerald.
No, we definitely want to protect the firemen. I talked to Palm Beach County and they say they can't do it there because they hire them as they come in, so they can't give them the years of experience or the pay grade. So I don't know if all of them follow suit on that, but that's Palm Beach County.
Did you say that they don't?
They can't.
They can't.
They can't. I guess if they advertise for a certain skill level or something, then that would be at that position, just like we have a pay scale, whatever. Okay, Councilmember Key.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So certainly, the livelihood and the protection of our firefighters is, I think, top priority for all of us up here. At no time was it not. And going forward, no barriers or obstacles. I think our direction to staff should be to negotiate for all of our firefighters to be taken on at full pay and with time and grade, time and service and pay. That's what the union that represents both the city and the county firefighters, that's what they're hearing for. And that's what they, of course, want for their members. And so let's go from there.
Okay.
I agree, and I would like to include the inspector as part of those six, so that would be seven. And that's how many we have, paramedics that they can hire. We have 2 in drop, right? We have 2 in drop.
Yes.
Right. So I agree with that, with their years of service. From what I understand, if I'm not mistaken, when Palm Beach County took over the smaller fire departments, the city fire departments, they did bring them in at their grade levels and years of service. But if they're doing new hiring, they bring them in as entry level positions like they perform here. So if that's the stumbling block, then it means going to a referendum and the voters, and it becomes a merger, not a, and then in special circumstances, it becomes a merger, then they can be hired if their levels of service and their pay scale, is what I understand.
But we have a direction that we want to include.
So I think we need to.
Okay. That gives you your direction, right? Okay. All right, I'll ask, on where we are in this process. So does anybody else have anything before we go to public comments? Any other sections or?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Keith, the administrator in his memo, on page 3 of his memo, he alluded to, it's under page 6, section 9, there's section 16, default, part A, default to all state counties and ability to provide. I wanted to revisit that. I wasn't sure if we got the green light from us to, we went, the very first topic discussed, Councilmember Abney agreed to the add a whereas, which was the first item in the administrator's memo. But did we touch on that, Mr. Administrator? Did we give him guidance on that? Is he did make comment on the default process, which talked about 4.2 minutes as an annual average for the response times. I just want to make sure that we were giving him the guidance that he was requesting.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, also with that, when it comes to time and action, do we still want, when it comes to discussion, they were still going to give us reports? That was also referenced in the memorandum. Do we still want those presented to the council? Well, I'm just trying to do that.
It went right over my head, I'm sorry.
But it also says, if you read further on, it says, reported to the city quarterly, reports quarterly, power updates to the city quarterly.
To me, the reason I tie the two together is kind of like with activity report. Chief gives me what the calls and whatnot were. County would give those quarterly, and since this would be one of the items to monitor, it would be in that quarterly report. I just want to make sure that by that direction that it would run together. Makes sense.
I think we should. Okay. Everybody. Okay. Thanks, Councilman. We'll include that also. Other comments? We've been on this a long time, but we'll.
Mr. Mayor. I apologize. I don't want the administrator to have to ask again or delay for some reason, because he did write it in his memo. And maybe forgive me if we did say the staff recommends usage of existing building bays for a term of no more than 1 year with quarterly payments and usage to cover utility insurance and other costs associated with the base determined. Calls for services cannot be run from the city building. So that was part of the contract as well, the use of our bays for storage and regards to the building issue. Do you need guidance from that? Was that, it's something you wrote it on there, but said it as a talking point, but we did not talk about it.
Yes, sir. I mean, again, I know in the previous discussions, I had mentioned that, I would prefer the county not be here just because of any issue or conflict or whatnot. But again, if it's a recommendation, they were here, they need storage, and if we were paying for a building, I'd much rather at least have, be able to offset a little bit of that cost here. So that would be up to council's discretion if that was.
So you wanted, well, I think it's appropriate to add that language or if it's not appropriate to be running calls from the bay here, storage no more than a year. I don't agree with quarterly payments. If we do away with the payments for your building, you know what I'm saying, all things being equal, we don't want to pay for a new building, you know what I'm saying, why would we be charging them or leasing them space for the year, as my opinion.
I'm trying to think of how to formulate a comment because, and it's just, again, for council's thought from staff. When you do a fire assessment, that number incorporates building, equipment, apparatus, everything. So that's what we're gonna hit our citizens with. They're already paying for it. And again, I just want to make sure the council understands that if they use another building, well, they're already paying that service. The county should have the funds in that to build a building or do whatever, buy equipment, et cetera. So I just want to make sure that's.
Exactly, and that's why I'm commenting to your suggestion to lease, charge them for usage of our bay. So if we don't want, we're saying that they should we're already paying for their building, their new building.
Correct. Yes. I'm clear on that.
I'm trying not to charge our citizens anymore either, and that's what we're getting at. I'm just saying, all things being equal, if we're not gonna pay for the new building over there, I don't wanna charge them for utilizing our space here.
So your recommendation is that you don't mind the year, but you don't want the charge?
Correct.
Okay.
And again, I agree,
Okay.
no running calls out of the building either, and I don't think they would.
Yeah, Councilmember Clark.
Clarify this. All they would be paying for is utilities, insurance, and costs for using that space. And if we're already paying them for the use of buildings, why would we incur another cost to the city to house the equipment? I guess I'm asking that question. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing that we should do this. It's just covering the cost of it.
Yeah, operationally next year, if the fire department's not there, we're still gonna have a cost associated with that building.
Right.
So this would just be an offset.
Understood. And she clarified and made it a lot more clear for her. And I agree.
So we agree, we want that in there.
Because it's covering the cost to maintain the building.
Right.
So leave the.
I'm gonna leave it in there. Thank you. Other comments from the council? Last call. Yeah, Councilmember Clark. go
I
ahead.
do want to make a
Yes,
comment.
yes.
Overall, I get emails, and I guess I asked if the other council people were getting the same emails I was getting from constituents. And for that reason, I wanted to read this because I wanted, again, to respond so people knew the answer to some of these questions. And can I go ahead and do that? Lane, can I go ahead and read this email that I received from the constituent?
Yeah, and please be sure and forward it.
I will, okay. This is a perfect example of what I'm getting. I have property in both the city and the county, and I'm very upset that you guys are considering giving up the fire department to the county, especially during this time when you should be hiring more first responders, not getting rid of them, leaving all these people unemployed as well, especially some that have served the city for over 10 years. Why can't this be put on a ballot for all residents to vote? And in the county, I pay a fire assessment, which is not included in the city. I believe most citizens would pay this so we could continue to have a fast response time. I cannot believe this subject has gotten this far because of two councilmen, I won't say their names. Please be the voice of the city for us. This is a luxury of being in the city. We have extra police and firefighters and a faster response time. In that case, I would be living in the outskirts of the county. And I want to read you my response because I think it answered a lot of questions. Unfortunately, the city cannot balance their budget without going into our savings account every year. It is my job as a councilman to be fiscally responsible to all the taxpayers of the city and to look at all possibilities of saving that $1.2 million deficit, or the city will eventually go bankrupt. The fire department was the first place we started to explore and have not come close to making a decision, since we have not even received a proposal from the county. We also asked this to be on the ballot, but the county refused. And in this situation, we have to have the city and the county agree. The fire assessment is a little more complicated. The county has many more residents than businesses to spread the money and is very affordable. In the city, we have a very small residential population, and so the business bears the burden of tax dollars and possible assessments. In the city fire study done 4 years ago, the average resident would pay $440 as a fire assessment. And a church such as First Baptist Church would pay about $30,000 for their fire assessment because it's based on square footage. Due to the disparity of the assessment from the county versus the city, these churches would much rather pay the county assessment, which in First Baptist Church's case would be $10,000 versus $30,000. The reason we're looking at the fire department is that there are many more residences and businesses that have pressed us into merging the two fire departments than against, so that we can lower city taxes and make them more efficient. All I can promise you is that we will be very diligent in looking into all possibilities, such as the ambulance services, taking care of the men and women that have served us at the city, while taking all the taxpayers into consideration. And I wanted to read that because I have sent the same email out numerous times to constituents, because that's the way I feel up here. I wanted to answer those questions so people don't come and ask us to take it to referendum and have the people vote on it, because that's what we tried to do. Okay? That's it.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion? Council?
Mr. Mayor, just want to make sure I'm clear. The 4.2 minute, what I'm going to call performance metric, which you pay for a service, you want to make sure you're getting performance. Is that, you wanted that in the default section, so it's a basis for getting out of the contract, or maybe in another section where it's a continuing goal?
I think it, I understand why the administrator put it there. Personally, I think it would fit better under one of the other whereases. Which one? Yeah, I think it should fit under one of the. I don't know exactly where it should fit. If it should fit under, but it should. I would agree. It should fit under somewhere where we're. Because we've got several of them where we're maintaining a high level of professional fire service. It could fit in there. There's a second whereas, or under the next one, which is the county has agreed to render the city a high level of professional fire services. Or maybe it's under one of the terms.
I just wanted to make sure.
I don't think
the default section.
Yeah, it could be there. But I think if we do this, I think the default sections, once we do this, it's kind of hard to
Page yourself.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
I
Go ahead.
apologize, I'm a latecomer to this ongoing
Saga.
Has the city ever formally requested that in a letter, mayor, chairman of the county commission, we would like to have this placed on a referendum, here are the reasons why, and did the county commission respond to that? Did they vote? Or is this just a conversation?
This was brought up when we had our meeting with the county.
We had a joint workshop meeting with the
Last year.
county. Yes.
Okay.
And I think there again, I'm relying on my memory, but it seems to me that under some of their discussions at their meetings, they've made it very clear. To answer your question, no, we have never sent such a request, but I think it's been understood that they did not want to do that. They wanted a contract. I think very clearly understood. Yes, Councilman.
I received an email that said, and I thought it was from your office, that said that with them deciding not to go to referendum, needed to come officially from their attorney. I'm trying to remember the actual information, the detail on that, email that came forward. And that it was coming from their attorney, Jim Voss.
I did send an email regarding the conversation I had with the county attorney.
Right, and wasn't that over the referendum decision?
That's still, those are informal
Okay,
sense of kind of thing.
that's what I'm referring
Not a
to.
vote.
That's that's what I'm referring to. So no, we did not have.
Other questions, Mr. Attorney?
No, sir, thank you.
Other comments from the council?
I'll just make it short with, we don't have paramedics, we have the fire department, and we've always had the county provide the ambulance. And we've done all these reports, 87% of the calls on EMS were covered by our fire truck and their fire truck. So that only left 13% that they weren't covering. And I just want to say, similar to what you had, I had a lot of comments. But Saturday, I met with a lady that owned a business in the city, and they still aren't open. But she says, we don't know if we're going to make it. Our taxes are $18,000 a year in the city, and we've been closed all this time. We're not sure we're going to make it. So when we look at this, we care about the firemen, but also we care about the people out here that are really hurting. And with all the money our federal government's spending, somebody's going to pay that back, and that's going to be us and our grandkids and their grandkids. And taxes aren't going to go down for the feds, but we're going to do our best to make sure they go down for our city residents. That's who we care about.
Other comments from the council? Okay, we'll move on then to the public comments on this issue. I know there's a lot of interest. I know there are people here to comment on it. I would just like to ask everyone to please, I'm going to quote, there was a gentleman, well, I'll say his name. I used to go watch Sonny Williams, chairman of the Planning and Zoning Board, and I just love to go watch him conduct with his chairman. And I wish I had the skill level that he has to conduct a meeting. And I've said this many times. I've heard Sonny Williamson ask a question that I knew dang good and well Sonny Williamson knew the answer to that question before he asked it. But he asked it for several reasons. He wanted to be sure everybody considered that issue, or he wanted to see what kind of answer he got. But the best thing I liked when he ran a meeting, when he would have meetings, the planning board meetings sometimes can get quite heated sometimes. And he would always, before he asked for public comments, and I'm going to kind of quote him on what he would say. First of all, I want you to, any members of the public, we really appreciate your comments, and we appreciate you being here. I just want you to please remember you're addressing the council. You're not addressing anybody in the audience, and we don't want to get into a debate or an argument between people in the audience. So if you would please address your comments to the council, we would certainly be glad to hear them, and we appreciate them, but address your comments to the council. Secondly, for anybody else that is in the audience, those here with us, please don't comment on somebody else's comment. I mean, either cheer or clap or boo or anything like that. It's very disruptive, and we would just appreciate your indulgence in that. That you let the person make their comments. We would appreciate it. And we would like for you to, of course, keep your comments civil. We hope we respect you, and we hope you would respect each member of the council. So we would ask you to keep your comments civil. And the chair does reserve the right to ask you to either leave or not make your comments if they're out of line. And I think we would all appreciate that. And that's the way you would like to be talked to, and that's the way we would like to talk. So with that, I'm going to open it up for comments for those who are in the room. Some have been here a long time. They came early to get a seat. So I'll open it up. I will remind you, the clerk will need your name for the record. I don't think we need address for this. It's not a zoning matter. But we do need your name for the record, so you would please come to the podium so everyone can hear, and please state your name for the record. So we want to begin on the front row?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, would anybody like to volunteer to go first? Anybody want to step up and go first? Okay. And I'll remind you, please, to state your name for the record.
Yes, sir. Ronaldo Rodriguez, with the City Fire Department captain. My question to council is, I've come to y'all before about some of these issues that we're having here. Y'all talk about the fire assessment tax, maybe actually including it or using that. I mean, am I hearing you right? Because the county already gets it, $344,000 from the city residents for their EMS. So therefore, if we included the EMS assessment along with our transports and along with our fire assessment tax, if we decided to do that with the city residents would ultimately have their own fire service, and it would be a squash for the 1.2 million that it takes to budget us. So the city would still save that 1.2 million, but in the initial startup would be the 145,000 for each bed unit. So roughly 300,000 out of pocket to start off, but afterwards, after that, it would be a squash because we'd be bringing up revenue into the fire department.
And I know you made a very excellent presentation to the council on this issue, and I can't speak for the rest of the council. I can just say that the way this process is going right now, that's probably something that the council doesn't want to consider at this point, because the council is looking at merging the fire department. And if they were to merge the fire department, that's not a service we would be able to provide. And the EMS is not, or transport is not a service we would be then providing. And fellow council members, does that kind of go along with what you're thinking, since we?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Keith.
Yeah, Councilmember Keith, yes, sir.
I agree with your statement, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to express to Captain Rodriguez, I agree, you presented a very good plan, your presentation well put together, and what you have would work. My concern is myself, I'm speaking for Councilmember Keith, is the additional costs. You just stated again the upfront capital expenditures that would need to take place.
Yes.
That we're already pulling out of reserves to pay for things. So that would that's capital expenditures that wow. And right now we're not receiving revenues that we budgeted for because of the COVID crisis. Our budget is affected. I wanted to tell you that I apologize if you felt that we had dismissed you or shunned you when you presented your presentation a couple months ago, and that the kick in the can, was not referencing you. It was a comment made about issue and not going back and forth with the county anymore. I wholeheartedly appreciate your presentation, your plan. It's valid. Your comments are valid. I appreciate you and your service to our community. My concern is the additional cost that isn't readily apparent or thought of. So, you have, and I brought it up when you gave your presentation, how many additional paramedics would we have to hire? So there's, salaries and benefits, health insurance. We just talked about the retirement plan. So that's an additional retirement expenditures that we're making. Vehicle maintenance is, so there's a lot more than is discussed at this level in regards to cost. And that's my concern, is piling on more cost to the city, which is the opposite direction of where we're trying to go. And I know you've expressed, revenue from, running the ambulances, and those costs, the EMS charge that the county gets that we would get and all that. I just think there's more cost that would be incurred long-term as well that hasn't even been discussed. So that's my Councilmember Key's thoughts to your presentation.
Yes, sir, no, I appreciate that.
Council, please understand, I'm not saying I agree, and I think you know that, I'm not saying I agree with the council position, but that is the council position, so, that's where we are.
In the audience, Mr. Mayor, I was just listening to you all talk, and y'all talked about the contract, and y'all talked about actual fire assessment, that the county would receive from the city residents. In order to do that, bring that revenue here. And instead of giving it to the county, bring it here, and then the city has their own independent fire service. Instead of giving it all away.
I would agree with you. I can't say I agree with you 100%, but I would agree that if we do not go all the way through this process, if at some point we decide not to do an interlocal or a contract with the county, I would say then we would come back and we could or would probably address the proposal that you gave us. But I just think right now it's premature to do that, because if we're going to, you understand what I'm saying, if we're going to merge the fire department, there's no sense talking about adding EMS service to a fire department that we may not have. So, but if we don't go through the entire process, I would agree that that is something that the council, would come back and want to look at for additional service to our citizens, as well as additional revenue to the city. So I would agree, if we don't go through this, if we don't make it to the end, we would probably want to look at that. But the way the council is going right now, we're headed in that other direction.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Yes, sir. Mr. West, and please state your name for the record.
Frank Wesley Williamson III. Thank you so much for those comments.
Your heartfelt.
And if I get through in time, I was councilman years back.
I had the honor to serve.
Water Management District.
Yes, sir. Great man.
Yes, sir.
I've been so fortunate to get a little bit of his wisdom. Thank you so much for this. If we get through, I'll exactly what you said. Really, I'm so amazing with you too, and I kind of wish Congress would have been here. Just a couple of issues, and so you all have touched on it. I'll share with you all $600,000 of your savings. Let's not forget about it. That's extremely good. And we don't know how long this COVID-19 pandemic will continue, and the economic side of that could continue much longer than the virus. And the city may need that $600,000 for taxes. We're also, I'm vice chair of economic council.
Could you speak up something?
I'm sorry. I'm vice chair of economic council, and you all looked at a lot of our stuff and adopted some of it tonight. We feel very strongly that that assessed number, if the county were to lay it over to the city, is the number. I think it's the fair number for the county and the city. And we've conveyed that to the county. We conveyed to the county the exact same thing that we conveyed to y'all, other than I think maybe one change that we were supported 5 years or something. We think that's a fair number, and hopefully maybe try to the entire county assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. See everybody looking at me and other comments. Okay, please state your name for the record.
I'm Josh Borsham, president of the International Association of Fire Departments, 2019. I'm coming here to basically just say this contract is not a merger. You keep using the term merger, and it's not a merger. If this goes through, the doors downstairs will close and everyone will lose their job. They have the option then to apply to county. Our chief of the county has already said that they would have to go through all of the process as any new employee. You guys touched on that today, that you would like to have that changed in the contract. I would appreciate that. There will need to be, if this were to go through, something in writing saying that. That's not it. There's no way that we can lose employees and then not hire them back at the county. And also, this is requesting 6 employees in one step. Where are the other employees being accounted for? In times like this, we need as many firemen and women on the road doing their job that they are trained to do, protecting this county, protecting this city. You've got guys with 17 plus years. People with guys that are already in the drought. And for this contract, if it were to happen the way it is written, would lose everything and start from fresh. Granted, they could take what they were best, and they could take their money with them then, but they would be starting over in a whole new retirement system, and that's not right. There is no need for any of that to happen. This is not a new process. It's new for the city and the county for it to go, where it's at now. It's a new process for that. But this has happened Bellblade, Pahokee, this has happened all over the place. That's just down there. There's Hollandale Beach, all of the small cities in Broward. We need to look at having a true merger and not a interlocal agreement where members of the union will be losing jobs and not guaranteed to have other jobs at the county. Watching on Zoom is the International Association Vice President for our area as well. Excuse me. She's going to chime in a little bit whenever it gets to public comments that are in the room about some of the process that she's been involved in. She was the union president for Broward, and she's got an extensive history on merging departments together, extreme knowledge of contracts throughout the country. She's a very respected member in the fire service, and I please just ask you to take what she's saying into consideration. She's done this a lot. Appreciate you guys having this for us tonight, circumstances. But please, we've got to maintain all of our members. We've got to make sure they have security if this is to happen, to be hired at the county. And if you choose to not vote that way, just remember until this does occur, if you guys need any one of them, they're still going to help you guys out.
Thank you. You want to come here?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Council member.
If you'd be willing to, I have a question.
Okay, would you be willing to answer? Would you mind answering the question? Okay. Yeah, you don't have to, by the way, anybody speaking, if we don't have to answer any questions, if you don't want to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Keith, Josh, Ms. Borgstrom, thank you so much for being here this evening. I appreciate your stance, and as you heard me, I hope previously state that it's all of our intentions to never harm any of our firefighters. So I think that this boils down to our desire to have all of our firefighters taken, walk across the street and work at the same everything, right? Time and grade, time and service, pay, rank. That's what I asked for. And I even mentioned, that's what the union was pushing for as well.
That's happened.
And I spoke to your friend, I appreciate that contact you made, and it's happened and it's been successful in contracts that were like a merger because they were contracts, interlocal agreements, but the firefighters merged from the municipality over to the county. Great. I want to see that interlocal agreement to learn from and whatnot. But in my opinion,
this situation, it boils down to a CBA. Collective bargaining agreement that the county has with the local 2918. So the county's CBA precludes them from hiring or merging our firefighters over. So my question to you is, are you currently in negotiations with the county to allow that to happen, to change that CBA as it's currently stated? Because the justification from the county that we're receiving is the collective bargaining agreement that they have currently doesn't allow them to hire or bring on above step 3. So what is your stance as the president, and are you currently in discussions with the county, appropriate staff, chief, and commissioner, whoever, to adjust that? So we're going to send over what we want.
That would definitely be addressed, 100%. We would agree, well, 100% be willing to open up that article. Of course, there would have to be MOUs that are written. There would have to be, there's a lot of moving parts.
Right.
And that's something that's definitely on our radar at this very time. But we're not opposed to doing that by any means. We'd be more than willing to do it.
If I may comment, Councilor McKee, I know I've had comments from several of the commissioners, and there again, my memory's not real good if they said it in a meeting or not, but they aren't anxious to open up negotiations. Anytime you open up union negotiations, it can be somewhat delicate. Sure. So I get the impression from the commissioners that they aren't willing to do that. Now they may change their mind, but I think as of right now, I don't think they're willing to.
Well, we can always ask them, because
it could be that could be asked, but
the pure simple fact of the matter is, if we don't ask them, then these employees will not be guaranteed a job.
Thank
you. That's trust me, that's on our radar as well, because there's a bunch of moving parts with all of this.
Thank you. That was one of my questions. I want to make sure that you were full force behind it as well.
Good. Thank you very much. Okay, other comments from those in the room? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Matthew Buxton, owner of Buxton Baptist Facility Funeral Home. I would hope that nobody would argue with my family's dedication and my ongoing commitment to this community. And I'm one of those, I guess you wouldn't call me a constituent because I live in the county, but I am one of those businesses that pays an exorbitant amount of taxes, twice of which is what your lady that you talked to pays. I was always told by my father, number one, by a former partner that screwed me, that if you ever really want to dabble against somebody, touch their wallet. And that's where I see them. And in everything that I've seen, nothing, and the people that I have talked to, nobody particularly says, Matt, this is what's going to happen. There are an awful lot of unknowns in this entire plan. And that's what worries me. Okay, county, we're going to have a 5-year plan. Then what's going to happen after that 5 years? My taxes get cranked. And I talked to a gentleman that owns a furniture store, and he was playing with some numbers and was looking as if taxes over a period of time would go up $6 grand. And I said, well, how many recliners is that going to have to sell to make up for that amount? And people will probably boo me, but my business is death, and I try to keep my costs low and the best, and nobody could complain when they come to me for every single fundraiser, everything that I give to this community. And in the event that those taxes and everything goes up, then I can no longer afford to do those things. And I'm very, very proud. My family celebrates 40 years this August for coming to Okeechobee. Even aside from my wallet is the employees. And we've got one that says we want everybody to go, another one says we're gonna look at 6, maybe 7. These are all of my friends too. And the people that, when we had an unfortunate heart attack and death at the Okeechobee Masonic Lodge, they were there extremely fast. I've talked to people in the county that are just outside the city limits, and it takes 30 minutes to get there. If I have something, which, being in the funeral business, there's a lot of emotion. There have been numerous times that a family member has gone down for whatever reason, and they're in the city, and they are there extremely fast. If emails are gonna go out, and you're gonna send things back, not to target you. But if we're gonna say that it is our fiscal responsibility to look at every single avenue, and we're gonna send that back out there, and if Lalo's plan is valid, then we should also be looking at that as well. To say that we're, not to target you, Mayor, but if we're also going to say, well, this is the direction we're moving forward, well, then the decision's done. Sign the paperwork and off we go. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, all the little tidbits that you mess with tonight are just tidbits. I've heard nothing said directly of what's going to happen. After everything is all said and done, what does my tax drop to? In 5 years after that, then do I get cranked to where I can't afford that? And if ISOs change, I also paid an exorbitant amount of money in insurance. And if that changes, can I afford to pay that? Am I going to have to change a direct cremation charge to what they're charging in Alabama or over on the coast, which is stupid numbers? So from Peanut Gallery, I hope that's worth, and we appreciate everyone there. And again, the wallet is one thing, employees are the other. And I know the dedication and what these men and women have put into this community to continue that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Other comments from in the room? Your turn. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Karen Press. Nothing you haven't heard from me on the same topic a couple of months before. But these things bear repeating. And I'm going to jump right to the point that I just can't get past. The default scenario here, you know, that we're going to farm out a service that came with the incorporation of the city. It's been, our fire service has been here as long as any of us have been here. It's been an integral part of this community, of this city since the beginning. It was born with us. And it's taking good care of us. Our department responds immediately. Their response time is beyond commendable. No wonder we want to build in certain standards. You know, we come to expect them because we receive them. And I'm not in a position to trash anything the county may or may not do. That's not why I'm here, for a lot of reasons. I hear all the discussion. And without all the information in front of me that all of you are privy to, I can't make the same fiscally educated decision that you may make. I ask simple questions like, you know, what does Okeechobee County assess per household for fire services? I know that. I've got a tax bill. I can look at it and see. But how's that going to translate to what they assess as this thing translates down the road? What's the approximate reduction in city taxes per household if the fire department's eliminated? We don't know. We don't know what that impact's going to be, but I can tell you, I for one have never had a governing body send me a wonderful little happy face and say, we're reducing your taxes. It just hasn't happened. There's always other imminent needs. The approximate increase in county taxes per household if the city fire department is eliminated, it's going to happen. They may insure us a number for the first 2 or 3 years. Okay, fine. But we're fixing to enter potentially into a 5-year contract. 5 years is a long time to suffer when it comes to something as important as essential services. As a governing body, and before I leave that issue, how will the county fire assessment impact city business? Of course, that's got to be a huge question. We concern ourselves with economic development, we concern ourselves with building a tax base, we concern ourselves with all of these things that relate to the viability of the city that we love and that supports us, and that we intend to support. And those questions have to be asked and answered before we move on. At the end of the day, the Economic Council has presented there's a $600,000 savings on the table. I fail to see how that, and I know that they're well studied. This isn't negativity towards any given group, but I fail to see how that can possibly be a taunted number when we haven't addressed the obvious inefficiencies in the department that we have. We've never given them license to do what could be done to be a more viable department for the city. And we're not going to give them the chance. I don't get that. If they have a work plan that looks like it could be viable, we've talked about kicking the can. Heck, let's kick it. Let's kick it a year down the road. Let's give them a chance. Let's give them that 1, 2, 3 years to prove to us that they can bring the viability to their department and maintain these services that are essential services to us, to those of us that have come to rely on them, so that we are the desirable community that people look for when they come in and take a look at us. We need to continue to base our desirability on the quality of life we're living. And now we're going to just throw a rock at it and say we're going to eliminate the one essential service department in this city that's spot on 100% of the time. I mean, okay, now I'm probably going to get shot at. If we're looking to alleviate a crunch in our budget, police department, that's $1.2 million more in savings. Let's consolidate. And we know we're not talking consolidation, folks. We're not. We're talking about disbanding a department that has served us brilliantly since the beginning. They've never faltered, they've never failed. There's other savings that can be employed. As a governmental entity, it is a responsibility to provide essential service. And honestly, I know you've heard me say it, and I'm not going to apologize for saying it, but if there is power in those numbers, if there is power in that consolidation, which you've also heard me say hasn't worked in the past, it's bitten the city in the butt in the past. And once you throw this fire department down, you're not just going to pick it back up. You're going to have a heck of a time saying, oh man, we shouldn't have done that. Now how do we fix it? Too late. Eggs off the wall. But at the end of the day, you can't tell me that we can just throw this opportunity away when there is indeed potential savings on the board that would bring them into some sort of fiscal viability. If the city can't provide essential services, then why are we here? Let's close the doors. Let's let the county do it all. They're so much better at all of this. If there's power in those kind of numbers, let's give it to them. Let's let them just do it all. Now, you know I don't mean that from the heart, but it's the kind of reasoning we need to be asking ourselves. If they can do this better, what can they do better? If those are the blunders we want to make. And it just really precludes the fact that we have a wonderful city. We've maintained it for many, many years, folks. And that city fire department has always been an integral part of it and been part of our pride. And we can't, I think it's amazing that you've taken the time to say we have some stipulations. And I applaud you for that. We should have those stipulations. We should protect our people that stood for us. And we should demand certain considerations that are apparently not there in the contract that's been proposed or written into the proposed. So yes, we need to push that. Please, by all means. Again, I applaud you for that. But don't stop short. If they say, no, we're not going to do it, don't throw yourself in the dirt and say, okay, we're done now. If we give the department an opportunity to prove fiscal viability, then they can. And they can, yes, got kicked down the road. And we come up against a wall and say, we're just saving so quickly that we can't remain solvent. And now we need to get serious about this, then people are gonna have to say, okay, you did everything you couldn't say that. It's probably not gonna stop there, but, you know, at least there will have been an earnest effort to retain the service, the level of service that we're all accustomed to. To retain a department that means an awful lot to every one of us. And I promise you, their service is commendable on any given day. I live too close to them, not to. So, I beseech you, give this some serious consideration, not that the Economic Council hasn't done their homework, but because things will change. 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, this isn't gonna look like it looks today if we just hand this over. Yeah, there needs to be some assessment. I don't see the churches paying $10,000 or $30,000, I don't. But if we've done it this long without that kind of grandiose charge, why do we have to jump that fence all in one fell swoop? We're done. We can work towards solvency without doing anything brash, without bankrupting anybody, including ourselves. We have potential here to retain these services and introduce some changes and make that department efficient. Those guys, however many of them you said, 6 or 7 of them are already in training for EMT certification. They're already walking down that road to bring efficiency to the department. Give them a chance. Let them do it. Let them show you they can bring you that fiscal viability and remain one of the wonderful aspects of being a citizen here in this city. They'll protect us if we'll stand behind them. I truly believe that. Thank you.
Councilman Gerald, you know, we take this very seriously. You said take it seriously. We do take it very seriously. We're trying to get figures from the county to know what, so we can make an intelligent decision. You know, and I keep hearing comments from other people. Well, I've been told that my taxes are going to go up $6,000. I don't know where they're getting these figures, but we don't have those figures. And I just want to remind you that for the first, not the first time, but we did cut the taxes last year 0.5%, and that's the largest tax decrease in over 30 years. And we spent $60,000 to equip these gentlemen, gave them all the opportunity to be a paramedic so that they would be eligible for hiring, whether it's in the county or if it's here. So we do take it very seriously, and we do care about the people.
Other comments from the room? Okay, I don't see any other comments from inside the room. Are there any outside waiting to come in? I don't know who was monitoring. Was somebody, Mr. Administrator, was somebody monitoring downstairs? Or, okay, we're going to take a slight recess here. We've been here a long time. So we're going to recess for just a few minutes. I'm not going to say how many, because the clerk will make me wait that long. So we'll recess for a few minutes, and then we will come back to work. We have taken all the comments for those who are with us in person here, and we appreciate those comments. We'll now move to those who may be on Zoom. So our host will, I guess you're going to let them know they're on. And again, if you would please state your name for the record, or are you going to tell me their name? I'm the host.
She was gonna read it.
Say again?
It's a chat that was written.
Oh,
to be
okay. Do
printed
you
and
have
read.
any comments? Anybody want to make comments on Zoom?
No, sir.
If you'd like to make comments, if you're watching on Zoom and would like to make a comment, either hit the little hand icon that's down, I think it's at the bottom of the screen where you unmute your mic. It says raise hand. If you would hit that, and then the host will let me know that you want to make a comment, or you can use the chat feature and we will read that into the record. So I'm going to go ahead. You have nobody on Zoom at the moment.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to read. We have several comments. I'll I'll read the two that were given or sent to the clerk before the meeting, and I will read them into the record. One is quite lengthy, but I will read it into the record. This is from Tammy Barber for today's city council meeting. I am enclosing in reference to the city council, I am emailing in reference to the city council board meeting that is being held on Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 at 6 p.m. It has been brought to my attention that there will be limited seating due to capacity levels. The meeting will also be streamed through Zoom, and concerns and or comments may be emailed and then read aloud during the meeting by the city clerk. I would like to add my concerns and comments to be read during said meeting. Quote, I have done a little research on several issues with the closure of the city fire department. I have read over the proposed contract agreed on by the VOCC that has been forwarded back to the city council for agreement. I do have several questions regarding this closure. Is it not the purpose of the city council to look after the best interests of the city of Okeechobee residents? Question mark. Yet the residents will not have any say-so regarding this decision of closing their fire department? Question mark. Does putting 13 people out of work even cause you to toss and turn at night? Question mark. This is 13 families that will no longer have this income. 13 families that are going to become the statistic of unemployment. Granted, according to this proposed contract, OCFR will hire 6 new employees, which none of those new positions are guaranteed to any of the 12 firefighters losing their jobs. Sure, they can go elsewhere, which has been said a time or two. Where exactly? Question mark. Fire departments look for recruits fresh out of school that will eventually retire from their station. It's not likely they hire firefighters that are over a certain age. Yes, some of these firefighters have 15 to 20 years on the job, some even more. However, that also means they're at least 35 to 45 years old if they started this career at 18. How is that looking out for the best interest of your city employees? The OCFD hasn't, and I'm going to read it verbatim, the OCFD hasn't went over budget. OCFD hasn't went over budget in 5 years. Why are they first to cut? Because the city of Okeechobee has budget issues. How is it that the current city attorney came in at a higher bid but got the job anyway, if the city of Okeechobee is so over budget? Which we can't say because they are already familiar with everything, because so is the OCFD. Why is the city fire captain's proposal not even being seriously considered instead of being tossed away like an obstruction to some backroom plan to shut down the OCFD? Which leads to this. The Florida State Statute 112.313, Section 7A states, conflicting employment or contractual relationship. Paragraph A, no public officer or employee of an agency shall have or hold any employment or contractual relationship with any business entity or any agency which is subject to the regulation of or is doing business with an agency of which he or she is an officer or employee, excluding those organizations and their officers who, when acting in their official capacity, enter into or negotiate a collective bargaining contract with a state or any municipality, county, or other political subdivision of the state, nor shall an officer or employee of an agency have or hold any employment or contractual relationship that will create a continuing or frequently reoccurring conflict between his or her private interests and the performance of his or her public duties that would impede the full and faithful discharge of his or her public duties. Therefore, I am curious as to how several of the city council board members do in fact have personal relationship with businesses in Okeechobee and yet still sit on the city council able to vote on such decisions affecting the city of Okeechobee. In closing, I am asking this question for nearly 500 Okeechobee residents at the time of this writing this email that have signed a petition that was posted on one Facebook page and shared over 100 times, having absolutely no say in this decision. Is this not their fire department? Are those not their firefighters? Doesn't the fire trucks and equipment being used belong to them? After all, it is the taxpayers' money that buys such things, is it not? I currently do not reside in Okeechobee anymore, but I have many family members that do. I personally know people that are employed by OCFR as well as OCFD. I understand how both departments operate. I also personally know people that have been employed by both departments. When I was made aware that the City of Okeechobee City Council Board intends to close the Okeechobee City Fire Department, I became very concerned for my children, my grandchildren, many aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews, and their safety. I am also concerned with response times being longer if my family needs assistance. I am concerned for taxes they will now have to absorb because of this closure, and I am concerned for the City of Okeechobee's history being erased as of it never happened. Such things as the OCFD, the city park, the buildings on Park Street, the livestock market, these things all make Okeechobee what it is. Why is it so important to become modern anyway? Why put 13 people in an unemployment line just stop kicking a can or keep up with times, ? Ask your residents. This issue, at the very least, should be implemented on a ballot for the citizens of Okeechobee to decide, not left up to 5 people on a board that claim to have the best interest of these citizens as their main priority. It doesn't seem as if the citizens' interests are not even being considered at all. Thank you for your time, Tammy R. Barber. I will return that to the clerk. The next is an email from Alicia Weeks. Alyssa Weeks, thank you. Alyssa Weeks. I am emailing the City Council Board in reference to the possibility of the City Fire Department closing. I am a city resident and have 3 small children, one of whom is asthmatic. My main concern, of course, would be the amount of time it will take for the county fire department to reach my home versus the amount of time it will take the city fire department to reach my home, if needed in an emergency situation. The county fire department is always so busy handling accidents, medical situations, and all other emergency calls that it seems they are always stretched thin. Okeechobee County is a very large area to have to provide emergency services for, which is why I feel that I personally can only benefit from the city fire department remaining open and servicing the city limits within Okeechobee County. And we have this comment was received through Zoom chat, which is dated this evening from
It's Melissa King.
Melissa King, thank you from Melissa. Yeah, Melissa King, thank you. I see it now, Melissa King. Good evening, Councilman. I see the section 16 listing default criteria, and after hearing the discussion, the City Council's desired changes to the contract presented by the county with regards to transferring those certain vehicles to the county, what contingencies are in place to obtain those vehicles back in case of default by the county? And what consideration has been given to the restart of cost of purchasing vehicles and other equipment at the end of 5 years of the 5-year contract if the city wants to have their own department back? Thank you. Okay, those are the comments that were received by email and Zoom chat. Robin, as our host, do we have any other?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so we have one that would like to speak.
Okay. Do we have a name?
Yes. Tori Fajo. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. Tori Fajo.
Corey.
Tori.
Tori, we have you on Zoom, and you have the floor if you would like to speak, and if you would please state your name for the record.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your time. Tori Fajo, F-A-P-J-O.
Thank you.
I'm the field district service rep for the 12th district of the IAFF.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I've met with Josh, and I want to thank your city administrator. He met with us 2 weeks ago. We did have a meeting. I just wanted to commend the commission for listening to this issue and spending a lengthy amount of time on it tonight. Been listening, and you're doing a great job with question and answer and bringing up good issues that you need to address. Obviously, from the IAFF, we're concerned with the members who work for the city of Okeechobee and our union members retaining their employment. I'm from Broward County. I was a vice president there and retired as the president now, only working for the International. But during my tenure of 29 years on the executive board, I wanted you to realize you're not alone. Broward County had 6 cities that have done interlocal agreements or contracts, but we always refer to them as mergers. And I'll list those from the city of Cooper City, Lauderdale Lakes, Dania Beach, Deerfield Beach, and just this year in January, Hollandale Beach, have all merged in their own city fire departments into the county system. The county fire service here is now merged in, and we work under the Broward Sheriff's Office. But notwithstanding that merger that happened, it's the same arrangement that you are looking to do here at the city. All those cities have, like I said, interlocal agreements. The county also has 2 enterprise funds. One of them is the Port Everglades Authority and also the Hollywood Fort Lauderdale Airport. With those being enterprise funds, they also have contracts and interlocal agreements with the sheriff's office or the county for services for their fire rescue. We also do our services for the city of Weston, but that was never a merger because we served that area when that area was unincorporated, and when they incorporated into a city, they did a contract with the county as you are doing, although there was no members who worked for their department because we were actually the ones serving that city anyway. But I think it's important to note and for you to know that in all of these scenarios, all of these members have just come into our department. We've opened the doors and they've brought in their seniority, their rank, and their salaries, where nothing was lost by any members of the fire service at any of these mergers or contracts or interlocal agreements as you're looking at. So I wanted to assure you that it can be done. We're more than willing to give you the resources you need from the IAFF. I've spoke with my fire chief from the Broward Sheriff's Office. He is more than willing to be a resource with your chief if he has any questions, so that he could answer those for your chief if he's wondering. But all of these municipalities did realize a savings, maybe not a huge savings in the first year, but they have all realized and understood they would have a long-term savings by regionalizing their department and bringing it in. The economy of scale. When Cooper City and Lauderdale Lakes, those are one station departments. When they had their own city department, they were one station as you are, although they did realize some savings because when it was time to use capital budgets to purchase trucks, they didn't necessarily always have to buy 2 trucks or have a spare truck available because now they're in a larger service. And if their truck was down for maintenance, then there's a spare available within our system. Now, obviously, Broward County here, our system is larger. We're now over 800 firefighters in the service, but still at your level, I believe by this regionalization type of service or using this economy of scale for purchasing and doing other things, that there are some long-term savings for the city to see without the impact or that savings coming off the back of firefighters. And I don't want to go too long. I know it's a long meeting. I just wanted to offer resources, tell you we're here to help. We're here for the members, and we think it can be done. I've seen it over 6 times happen here locally. I heard reference, let me just add on, I heard references to Palm Beach County. They've also taken the same approach, but Dade County and Palm Beach were a little different because they merged the tax bases in a sense because they have taxing districts for their fire services. So were the cities that went into Dade County many, many years ago, and the not so long ago merger of Palm Beach County. That was kind of different and not this scenario because they merged into the district. I heard some discussion about referendums and there's other legalities needed in order to do it in that way. But I can answer any questions briefly if you have them, but we're here, our resources are here, and we hope you'll just consider the members and their lives and their seniority and time they've put into the city and dedicated to you. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Tori. Thank you for your comments. Any questions from the council? Seeing none, thank you, Tori, for your comments. We appreciate it. Thank you for joining.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Any other comments from anybody on Zoom?
No, sir.
No more comments. Okay. We'll close our public comments then and bring back up here for any other discussion. I think we've given the administrator and the attorney pretty good instructions. If anybody has any other comments they want to add, or since we've heard public comments, any comments you'd like to add? Councilman, we'll start at the end and come down. Councilmember Adams.
Yes, I'd like to take Josh with us and Mr. Tory, if they can be of assistance, I'd like to reach out to them and staff level so if we can do that, see if they can be an advocate for us.
Yeah, sorry, yes, we have. We'll continue to, okay.
Councilmember Gerald, any other comments or?
Sorry, comments?
No, sir, this is just for the fire department, we're gonna move on after this.
Yeah. Would it be appropriate? I know there's questions on some of these comments from the email. I feel it's appropriate to answer any questions. I don't know if you.
Well, the one that I noticed.
I certainly have comments, but if there was questions, I didn't read that one.
Okay, we'll read this, the one that came in through Zoom. What contingencies are in place to obtain those vehicles back in case of default? And I should have looked at that real close, but it's a lease, and if there is a default, we take the vehicles back. I think that's the way it's written. I'm looking at the city administrator for guidance here.
Currently, it would be a lease now, right? The consensus was to sell.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. So if we sell them, we would not get them back unless we bought them back or buy new equipment if we were to go back. And I think we all agree restart costs would be, would be pretty extensive. Yeah, pretty extensive. So I don't think there were any. This was just concerns. This was mainly was asking us if we, and I think we have. I hope we have addressed that we are concerned about the employees. I think that's been addressed. Of course, there's I guess the question of 6, 7, or the 13. So, but we have expressed, I think, our concerns about that. As far as conflicting employment or contractual relationship, I'll reserve that to the attorney, but I don't know of any council members that currently and we do disclose when we're going to vote any voting conflicts that we have, and I do not know of any, and I'm sure the council members would be under obligation to disclose any of those if there were. So,
Matt,
yeah,
briefly,
Mr. Attorney.
So I reviewed the comment letter, and I think the writer misunderstands the state ethics law under Chapter 112 for statutes. And having a friendship with someone rather than a business relationship is very different. I think the letter suggests that certain council members have friendships, but that's not prohibited by the state ethics.
But we have personal relationships with businesses in Okeechobee. I think all of us have relationship with businesses in Okeechobee. So I think you're right. There may just be some misunderstanding, but I do. The answer to the question is I don't think, or in my opinion, and I think the attorney agrees, that there's no one that has a conflict of interest on this matter that I'm aware of. So, and I think that was basically all
I think you covered it, Mr. Mayor. I just didn't want to have any of the members of the public feel that they were left out on their not being present. But in regards to other comments I have, Mr. Mayor, if I may, it was mentioned somewhere this evening already about the a petition that was started
on Facebook. Yes, sir.
Right, and under change.org. And I would just like to comment to some of the things that were put out there, if that's okay, we're on the topic. I don't know if I need to read it in its entirety or just make some comments.
I think you can just make your comment.
Okay.
I think most of us have probably seen it.
So, obviously it comes from an emotional standpoint. I don't know who wrote this up, but what I have highlighted is without any consideration of the public, we meet in the sunshine, we meet at public meetings that are available to the public. Our agenda is posted online prior to. I've talked to many constituents. Of course, I don't talk to all 6,000 people that live in the city, but there's public meetings and public information requests available. We haven't done anything without any consideration of the public. Another thing I have, 13 people unemployed, as we've expressed this evening, hopefully they're watching. It's our intent to have everybody employed. That's always been our intent. Posted about hiring department, none of the city employees will be given preference for jobs. So that's just flat out untrue, because as it is, they're given local preference. They're given a preference. As if they're so there's, it didn't say guarantee, but there isn't a guarantee, but there is a preference built in. So that's just not entirely correct. The city council claims it has to do with budget. We are here, we are entrusted with taxpayers' money. We are vested to do what is right by all citizens. That's yes, first and foremost. And then it alludes to Captain Rodriguez's alternative plan, and it states they have shut him down in the board meetings. That's why I addressed Captain Rodriguez earlier this evening. Apologize if he felt that way, because I presented his case, and I did not feel that we shunned him or shut him down, stopped him at all. And again, referred to as kick him in the can. That was in regards to the back and forth with the county, not anything to do with anything our firefighters have said or presented. And it talks about somebody said also public comments being shut down as well. And I think that I can't recall any time I've been sitting up here that we've ever shut down a citizen while they're talking, even though it's expressed, keep your comments to 3 minutes. I mean, this evening, nobody stayed below 3 minutes, and we certainly didn't shut them down. And again, on this petition, why couldn't this be on a ballot to vote instead? So obviously, we've already covered that this evening as well about the ballot issue. So I just wanted to bring this up and refer to it and comment back to it in this public meeting. There's a lot of unfactual statements being made on this, and I get it. Again, it's an emotional issue. So that was my comments about it.
Thank you, Councilmember Keith. We'll go to Councilmember Clark. Do you have any final comments? I'd just like to clarify one thing, and I thought of this earlier, but you just brought it up again on the referendum. And I'll ask our attorney, when we talk about a referendum, the way we've been using the term, it's in regards to the fire tax. That it takes a referendum by the city and a referendum by the county. It's essentially 2 referendums, one for the city, one for the county, to agree to do the fire assessment. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And maybe I'm wrong here, but the city, in fact, could put anything on a ballot if the city desired.
Yes, you can take a straw poll on the color of the building.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just want that understood that, you know.
I was addressing the legal
Yeah,
efficacy of it.
and I understand that, that's what we were, that's the context we're using it in. But, I just wanted to understood that, and then we have council members that may not be aware of that fact, but we normally don't, because that's, you know, it's, number one, it's a very inefficient way to run the government. That's why we get elected, to make those decisions. So, but that is you know, something that we have done that in the past. I think that worked directly on certain issues. But that being, I just wanted to clarify that there is.
Can I ask that question? Can I make a clarification then?
Yeah.
So, so what you're saying, I'm gonna go a little deeper than that. So what you're saying is if we wanted to do a straw vote, if the city residents wanted to merge the fire department, then we could put that on as a referendum, is to ask them what they want to do.
We could, yes, and we don't have to follow, well, I don't think we have to follow that, it's just a straw vote, but unless, I guess it depends on how it's worded. But that, there is a cost of that. There is.
But I understood that the question we asked of the county is if we wanted to merge the fire departments, that is what would have to be on the referendum by both the county and the city.
For the fire assessment, do a fire assessment.
I thought it was to do a merger. Because well, if there is a merger, then there would be a fire assessment.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right. Ultimately, if the fire assessment that's effectuated here, again, just so we're clear, the mayor's talking about essentially a straw poll. If you want to get a sense of the sentiment of the residents, and that's been done by municipalities in the past with relatively controversial issues. As the mayor correctly points out, it's not binding, just to get a sense of the electorate. You know, also the timing of it too. Do you get a sense of the electorate if 20% of the electorate votes? So that's why it's not an often used tool.
Okay.
Okay. I hope I didn't confuse that too much.
Well,
yeah.
Trying to figure out where you're coming from.
Right. I just get more people think and say, well, you know, we can't put it on the ballot because the county doesn't put it on the ballot. We can't put the fire tax, well, we can put it on there, but it wouldn't have an effect. But we could put, you can do that. It's very rare, and in my opinion, that's why we get elected, to make these tough decisions. Whether sometimes we make really tough decisions, and sometimes they aren't popular, sometimes they are. So, but I just wanted to clarify that so people didn't think, well, you know, we're not putting it on a ballot because the counties, they're not putting it on a ballot. You know, we could do that if we wanted to, but I don't think we want to, but we could if we wanted to. Okay. We talked about that enough tonight. Can we discuss the fire service?
Yeah, just one other thing to get off this. You have what we want to do, right, John?
I think Marcos and I have a good sense of being able to put together a red line version of the county's contract. Now, I think
What we need to know, is that going to come back to the council, or
I believe it needs to.
At the next meeting?
Yes, I can tell you, I haven't redlined it. Now that I have a conceptual idea of where you want to go, I would feel a lot more comfortable bringing back and presenting to you, getting you to vote on a counter proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great way to do it. Yeah. Very good. Okay. All right. I think we've had enough discussion on fire. That's what we talked about, was discussing, so we've discussed it. So we'll move on to the last item that's on the agenda, is to conduct the city administrator annual evaluation. I'll leave it up to the council. they want to have any other comments or anything. Our normal procedure, Madam Clerk will correct me if I'm wrong, is we give the scores and what the average score is. And basically, I think you've all had an opportunity to discuss your evaluation. If you haven't, you can have that opportunity to discuss your individual evaluation and comments with the administrator. If you haven't done that, you may want to do that. So we'll just start with I'll just go down the list as the clerk, thank goodness, has tallied these scores. The final score from Mayor Watford is 4.6. Final score from Councilmember Abney is 2.8. The final score from Councilmember Clark is 3.9. Final score from Councilmember Gerald is 4.6. And the final score from Councilmember Keith is 3.8, which if you total those up, divide by 5, the average score is 3.9. 3.9 is at the very top of our score key of satisfactory. The very top is 3.9, 4 goes to good. So the administrator's evaluation is 3.9. Any questions or comments?
I was just when you started the number, you said I was out of 10, right?
Yeah. Out of 5. Yeah,
This will be
out of 5.
This will be the last meeting.
Yeah, we'll see if he shows up next time. Okay, that was the final item on our printed agenda. We'll now move on to council member comments. Councilmember Abney. No comments. Councilmember Gerald.
I'd just like to thank each one that came. I know a lot of them already left, and I know it's controversial, and everybody looks at it differently. But I'm proud to serve on the council here, and I'm proud of the council over the last year, how we've addressed issues, and we haven't agreed on everything, but we've handled it like the council should handle it. And I just thank each one of you. We'll go to the next year.
Councilmember Keith.
And my answer already there.
Mark this record, mark this meeting down. Councilmember Clark.
I'm fine.
No comments. Okay. That was the final item on the agenda, so we are adjourned.